Delegates, how's everybody feeling today? Oh my God. How's everybody feeling today? Amazing. It is day 2 of training. We still are about 30 delegates short for this morning. So we are going to start, as you know, we start on time every time. So those your colleagues will have to just try and find their way in as we get started. And we have a very, very special morning planned for you today. Just a couple of housekeeping announcements before I introduce our guests and they get started. The first is to remind you, please, to have your phones on silent. The second is that we found a pair of headphones last week. So if anybody is missing their headphones, just come and find me during lunch and I can give them back to you. Thirdly, a reminder that no food is allowed in this hall. No biscuits, no crisps, no snacks, no food. You're allowed water and that's it, okay? If you do need to eat something, you have to go into the dining area. And then my fourth and final announcement for this morning is there are a number of students who have not yet submitted their parental consent forms. If we do not get those by Monday of next week, which is in 2 days' time, you cannot continue in the Model UN. We cannot have anybody here under 18 without signed consent from their parents or guardians. This is very serious. You're our responsibility, but we need to know that your parents know that you're here and they have signed and given consent. We had a number of people this morning who have not yet submitted their forms. So please, please speak to your teachers first thing on Monday. If you need us to give them a call, just reach out to Ananda or myself. We have to get those by close of business on Monday. Okay? And if for any reason you can't get it, you need to let us know. So anybody who shows up next week without a parental consent form will not be allowed to enter the hall. Okay. So that's it from me. We are going to be doing our country selection today, which is a very exciting part of the Model UN journey. And that will take place after our colleagues from the United Nations have finished their presentations. And they have so much amazing information to share with you this morning. So take notes, make sure you interact, ask questions. Not only are they one of our partners for the 25 years we've been doing the Model UN, but they're also one of our sponsors this year as well. So we're really grateful to the UN. As you know, this week is UN General Assembly. How many people have been watching the General Assembly? Yeah, I mean, it's quite fascinating, right? There's a lot happening. It's been very dramatic. So that's what you're going to be emulating at the Model UN, right? I don't need people to walk out of the hall when somebody makes a speech, but, you know, that's the kind of idea of what we're looking for. All those countries in the world coming together to try and solve problems. So it is my absolute pleasure to invite Fane Richards, who I've been liaising with for months to get to today. She's our coordinator for the UN, our liaison for the UN. She's going to introduce her team and then they're going to get started. So please join me, everyone, in welcoming Fane.
Thank you very much, Lara, and good morning, everybody. It's so great to see so many of you all here, and the UN team is really excited to be here. So we are a couple of us from the UN. You'll hear from different agencies this morning, 4 in total. You'll be hearing from my colleague based in the Bahamas for the Office of the Human Rights Commissioner, Reba Granado-John. You'll hear from my colleague who is from UN Women, Janelle Mirage. We have Dr. Dylan Kerrigan, former UE lecturer, who is now the Peace and Development Officer for UNDP and the Department of Political and Peacebuilding Affairs. And we have Amanda Lawrence, who is walking in now from the United Nations Information Center. So that's 4 UN agencies, but I kind of want to quiz everybody to get everyone stretched, ready, and brains wide open. So we're going to play a little morning icebreaker to get you moving and thinking a bit. And this is called Have You Ever? So the rules are, if you have the answer as yes, you stand up and clap. If your answer is no, you can remain seated. Everybody get the rules? Good. Have you ever heard of the United Nations? Good. Right. Have you ever heard of the United Nations in Trinidad and Tobago? Good. Thank you for the ones who were honest and stayed seated. That's fine. Have you ever traveled to Tobago? Good. Right, good. Have you ever visited Point Fortin? Yeah. All right, good to know. Good. Have you ever heard of the Sustainable Development Goals? Not bad. Right. Have you ever heard of the UN agency, UN Lyric? I knew that would catch on. Good. Now we're getting somewhere. Have you ever heard of UNESCO? Not bad, not bad. Have you heard of the landmark document, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Okay, not bad. Well done. Well done, well done. Have you ever heard of the Convention on the Rights of the Child? Well done. Have you ever heard of the UN agency, UNFPA? I almost, kind of, you're not sure, you're not sure. Okay, correct. All right, and last one. Have you ever found yourself waking up from a dream where you thought you were falling endlessly? Wow, that one's popular. Some Harry Potter stuff going on in here. Okay, good. Right, thank you very much, everybody. So now that we're enthused and energetic, I am honored and delighted to kick off our presentations with an overview of what the UN is. And to deliver that presentation and work with you for the next half hour or so, we have the National Information Officer at the United Nations Information Center for the Caribbean, or UNIC, as we call it for short, Ms. Amanda Lawrence. I'm just going to get Amanda's slides going through the meeting so that our online participants can see. Right. Hold on. There's no keyboard. I'm perplexed. Hold on 1 second. Right. There you go. So it's just a click from here.
Thank you, Fane. Good morning, everyone. I'm Amanda. I'm Amanda Lawrence. I am the National Information Officer at the UN Information Center for the Caribbean area. We are based on Chancery Lane, close to where Fane is. So I want to talk today, I just want to give you a brief introduction to what the UN is about. So you have a sense of what the organization is like that helps you navigate all of the organizations and concepts that Fane was just talking about. So I am going to start by running a very short video, and then we will talk about the ideas that are presented in it.
So this is the signal to control room that a video is going to play. So we'll get the thumbs up that the mic audio is good.
We start with the history of the United Nations. Does anyone know when the United Nations was established? You can just shout it out. Right. 1945, thank you, yes. And do you know where? No, no. It wasn't, it was established at a conference in San Francisco. Yeah? All right. So, we, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. The United Nations was created because the world as we know it at that time, had gone through 2 world wars. And the powers that existed at the time, what was considered the world isn't what the world is now. There were 51 states that were running their affairs, and many of them were in Europe, and they wanted to ensure that they wouldn't have to live through the horrors of war, of the Holocaust, of the killings. So they decided that they wanted to create some kind of mechanism that would allow them to manage their affairs, that would allow them to cooperate and to find a way of supporting the people in these countries and preventing the states themselves and the governments from fighting each other whenever there is a conflict. And that really is the reason the United Nations was created. All right, so what is the charter? Someone? Do you know about the Charter of the United Nations? Okay. Tell me. Okay, but what is it? You know about it, so what is it? How would you describe it? Okay, someone else. All right, cool. All right, so this is my charter, right? Yes, and if you've ever seen it before, this is what I use as my reference document. The charter is the constituting document of the United Nations. So these 51 countries got together and they made decisions about what they wanted. They were going to create an association of states and they were going to lay down the rules. I don't know if any of you have been following the general debate. for the General Assembly that's happening, that's been going on all of this week. Yes? A nod? No? Right? Okay. Right. Okay. So the general debate is where these countries come together and they actually speak about, they tell the rest of the world what their own position is with respect to international relations and international issues. And it happens every September. And it's been going on for the past week. And what is useful about that is that these countries are able to tell us directly what their position is and what their priorities are. And the reason I refer to it is because of Mia Mottley. Mia Mottley spoke yesterday, and the theme of her address was rules. She was saying essentially that we have to abide by the rules that we set up. Otherwise, the system will break down. So what this charter does is it sets out those rules and it identifies what the priorities are. Yeah. So it's important to think about and remember the charter as your constituting document. Right. So the United Nations, these 51 countries, including what we know of as the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, and they are somebody. France, Russia, China, United Kingdom, US, right, okay. So we know about the Security Council, yes? And we know about these 5 members. So you have these 5 members and they were ready. And the reason they are recognized as the powers and they're the ones in the Security Council that have the veto is because they were the ones who were around at the very beginning. And they were the ones who made a decision that we need to manage our affairs. They were the powerful countries at the time, and they were the ones who were directly engaged in war, and they were the ones who recognized that if they didn't do something, the system would implode. So you have those 5, yes? And they got together with other countries who were independent at the time, and that included 3 Caribbean countries. Do you know who they are? Anyone, you can take a guess. Think of the countries that were independent in 1945, right?
If I'm not mistaken, I think it's Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, and Barbados.
Okay. Trinidad, Tobago, Jamaica, and Barbados weren't independent in 1945. So they weren't states, right? So let's go again.
Cuba and Dominican Republic.
Who else? Who else can you think of? Which other country can you think of that by
Haiti.
1940? Thank you. Right. Yes. So they were considered part of the global community at the time, and they were part of that group of 51 that started or established the United Nations. Yeah. Today, we have, and I mean, you just need to look up so you can tell me how many states do we have that are part of the United Nations? Okay, yes, 193 states. And the state that joined most recently is in
South Sudan,
when?
2018.
11. Damn. All right. And so you have 193 full member states. And we also have in the United Nations 2 observer states, and they are
the Vatican City, and I think Palestine.
City of Palestine. Okay, fine. So we know what the United Nations looks like, right? Great. All right. Within the Charter of the United Nations, identified that this association would comprise the member states that were admitted to the association, and that and there were certain rules of engagement that these states would have to follow. One of these rules of engagement was sovereignty. What does that mean? Okay, let me try this side. Let me see if there's someone on this side who can tell me or who can guess what we mean when we say sovereignty. Yeah.
Full independence and self-determination without the influence of an outside state.
Close. Yes, that's the general idea, that as individual states, we have to respect each other and the right of each other to run our own affairs. So yes, that would be our independence and self-determination. And that was a critical part of this, this agreement, that we are going to come together as an association, and we're going to find a way of working together with non-interference in each other's affairs was going to be fundamental to this process. And it's important to remember that, because then that starts to explain why states act the way they do in the international community, why interference is such a difficult thing, and why it's resisted so greatly. But it also tells us, it also allows us to understand about power politics and the fact that non-interference is a principle, but it really doesn't matter if you're the powerful state or if you're the less powerful state. The more powerful ones will probably try to interfere anyway. And that's real life, right? Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to talk about that. Okay, in this organization, so we have this organization that was, let's say, founded by the United States, by the United Kingdom, and by Russia, and then the other two powers at the time. And they made a decision about how they were going to engage. So all of this is laid out in the charter, how we're going to communicate with each other, how we're going to organize the UN itself, and how we're going to communicate. And we are going to, and for our meetings and our documents, and so we're going to agree to communicate using 6 languages. 2 of these are official languages. 2 of the 6 are official languages, working languages, and they're all the languages that we are able to use, and we translate all our documents into. So they're considered the language of the United Nations. Anyone know what they are? Okay, well, if think about the founding countries. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is to help you understand that what we see as the United Nations really is a reflection of the needs and the will of those that created the United Nations. And over time, it has evolved, and there have been other components introduced. But when we see the United Nations and we try to understand what it is and why it's that way, right, we can go back to the history, and that helps us to have a better sense of what's going on. So what do you think the 6 official languages are?
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
The 6 languages are English, French, Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, Russian, and I have one more. That's 6? Oh.
English, French, Spanish, Chinese, Arabic, Russian. Okay, good. All right. Loyalty to the Charter, of course, because this is our constituting document. This is what expresses what's important to us. So obviously, these are the rules that Mia Motley spoke about. that we need to adhere to. And if we don't adhere to them, then things start to break down. The last thing that we need to remember about this, about the constituting of the organization, is the concept of multilateralism. Again, if you've been looking at the general debate, then you will have seen and heard the idea and the term come up. And multilateralism really is the idea that in order to work together, we cannot work, in order to work effectively, we cannot work individually. We have to cooperate. And that is the concept that the United Nations was created on. And because the international community is a community of independent states, and independent states that is dominated by the more powerful ones, there is always a tendency to be pragmatic and strategic about how these relationships are developed, and to reject multilateralism. There's a temptation to identify the powerful or the most useful state and most useful ally, and to work with them, and sometimes to undermine other allies. And that might be useful in the short term, and it might help a state to realize its objectives, its immediate objectives, but over the long term, it undermines the system, because we are all dependent on each other. And if we have a system that has rules and structures that depend on working together, when we try to sidestep it and undermine it, over the long term, it's going to break down. Yeah? Make sense? It's important that we understand that and think about that again when we're trying to simulate what is happening in this organization, which is what Model UN is. So that what we're doing is not just getting up and simulating what happens in the General Assembly when we stand up and we're at the podium and we speak. What we're actually doing is trying to simulate the process. And in order to do that, we need to understand the idea behind the process. Yeah? All right? Cool. So, okay, so the structure is really the framework of the organization. These are the organs that were created for the organization, and they are the General Assembly. Somebody in a sentence, what's that? Anyone know what the General Assembly is? No? Okay, so we're debating about, okay, come, tell me.
The overall discussion between all member states of the United Nations.
The overall?
Discussion of all member states of the United Nations.
Okay, it is the forum of the member states for that discussion. So the General Assembly is the actual forum of 193 member states, where 193 member states have the opportunity to express their will and their priorities, and to come together and discuss it, talk about it, and to make decisions and make pronouncements, and to set the direction of the United Nations, so that the United Nations can support these member states in achieving their goals. Trying not to be too abstract, but that's what it is. That's where the member states come together and they say, this is what we want. That's all that the General Assembly is. Yeah? All right. The Security Council. Remember the Security Council, right? It was created, the five permanent members. Yes. So what is the Security Council? And what does it do? Why is the Security Council important? Yeah. Not hear it. Maintaining peace, that is the objective of the Security Council. The Security Council was created to ensure and to enforce the rules of the United Nations to maintain peace. It is like the executive of the United Nations, right? So this is the body that sets the course, that makes the ultimate decision, that has the ultimate power. And they're the ones that manage this peace process, that are meant to manage the UN's process of non-conflict and negotiation and finding peaceful ways of solving our problems. Because that's the basic rule. We don't want war. We don't want the system to implode, and therefore it's illegal to use war and any type of war to solve a problem. If there is an issue, if there is a problem, it can, and there is some type of conflict that states don't seem to be able to address, then the Security Council can meet and make a decision about how it should be resolved. And if they make a decision that the way in which it's being, the way in which the conflict is being addressed is illegal, then states are obliged, because of their membership in the organization, to desist. Now tell me, is that clear? It's important to understand that. It's important to understand what that means. Yeah? All right. So you have the Security Council, which is the executive body. And in that Security Council, you have 5 permanent members. These are members that not only get to vote, but they get to veto. And the reason that exists is because they were the powerful ones when the organization started. And that's the only reason. And the issue of UN reform and the issue of reform of the Security Council has to do with the fact that the United Nations was created 80 years ago, and the power balance and the nature of the relationship between states is different now than it was. But if you were there at the beginning when the association was created, and because you were one of the founders, you were given that kind of power, you're not going to give it up. And that really is the issue of Security Council reform. And that's the problem. All right. So you have the Security Council, you have 5 permanent members who have a veto, and then you also have 10 other members that get to vote, and they're rotated. All right. So at the general debate, again, you would have heard certain states saying, we wish to become part of the Security Council in 2029. And so they'll make an announcement because they're essentially lobbying to become a member of the Security Council. But that membership will only last for a couple of years, and then they'll be rotated out. The problem with that is that even though they are 10, and there are 15 members in the Security Council, and they all have a vote, if 5 of them have a veto, then it really is going to undermine the power that they have through the Security Council, regardless of what the Security Council's role is. Yeah? The Economic and Social Council is a body that was created to coordinate the development and economic support activities of the United Nations. It's the best way that I can explain that to you. And through the Economic and Social Council, we were able to bring in all of the other organizations that you might associate, or many of the other organizations that you associate with the organization, and that you consider to be UN, right? So Thane, when you were doing your game, right, you were talking about organizations, perhaps ILO, right? The WHO, World Health Organization, International Labour Organization. International Labour Organization is actually older than the United Nations. Yes, states came together and they made a decision about creating an organization to manage their affairs in workers' rights and in labor, and that happened before the UN was created. So that organization existed. The World Health Organization, the Civil Aviation Organization, all of the technical organizations that support countries in developing their capacity to serve their own people in areas of health and agriculture and labor and education. All of these organizations were individual organizations that the countries had created separately. And it was like the UN. So the countries came together. They said, we need an international labor organization. These are the rules. This is how the International Labor Organization is going to support us. They're going to send experts. The experts are going to help us develop policies. And through that, we're going to use this mechanism of this association to support our development. When the United Nations was created, which was really to just maintain peace, they recognized that in order to maintain peace, you have to ensure that there's development. Now, what does that mean? Somebody. In order to have peace, you must have development. Somebody?
Hi, good morning. I think it means development on not only a social level in terms of the country's social policies, but also on an from an economic standpoint, where it is that the country is able to develop on both a socioeconomic level. I'm not sure if I'm making sense of that, but where you are able to have a much more like a much more educated response to an issue.
Okay, all right, that's one way of understanding it. Something else to consider is that if you have, and we're seeing it now, think about it, think about the issues in the world. When we as people are deprived of what we need to live, what we need to support ourselves and our families, what we need to prosper, when we have no hope for our children, for ourselves, of going anywhere, then our lives will descend into conflict, because we will have to find a way of getting what we need to support our lives. Yeah? Because at the end of the day, it's about survival. Yeah? And if you do not create the conditions that the people of the world need to live a decent life, and to ensure that their potential isn't undermined, and that they feel as though that their children have opportunity, then they will have to, there'll be conflict, and they'll be fighting for what they need in order to move forward. Yeah? And if you think about that at the level of states, if you think about states that have gone to war, if you think about states that feel that they have been deprived, think Germany. Think Germany, think Holocaust. Think about the rhetoric and the propaganda that drove Germany's actions going into the Second World War, right? If there's a sense of deprivation, then that is going to support conflict. And that really is what that's about. If people also don't feel that their human rights are being respected and supported, and they don't feel that those because that's what human rights are. They are entitlements that we all have by virtue of being a human being. If they don't feel that they can enjoy them, then that will lead to conflict. And that essentially is what that is about. All right. All right. So I'm going to speak about the Trusteeship Council, which was really about those countries that weren't independent, and that at the time was felt that there needed to be some kind of supervisory body to help the process along. That body is no longer functional because the last country that it was felt needed that type of support was Palau, and that was in 1994. So the Trusteeship Council, even though it existed and it was part of the structure of the UN, at the beginning, it no longer functions. So you'll see when you look at the structure of the UN, you'll see General Assembly and Security Council, the Economic and Social Council, and the Trusteeship Council. But you don't hear very much about them because it's not functional. The International Court of Justice. What is the International Court of Justice? Somebody tell me. In one sentence.
Good morning. The ICJ is the main governing body in charge of settling legal disputes between member states in accordance to international law.
Okay. Yes. Yes. The International Court of Justice is a dispute settlement body. Now, what we want to remember about the International Court of Justice is that in the relations between states, remember, states are sovereign. Remember, states are independent. Remember, states are self-determining, and they are and their relationship is governed by these rules that they agree to support and adhere to. But there is no type of enforcement that can make them. There's no enforcing power then. There is no international police. Right? And it's important to remember that when we try to understand the relationship of state. So the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, is that body that clarifies and adjudicates about the relations between states, about about conflict between states, about the behavior of states, and it clarifies, what as an organization and what as an international community the position is with respect to that, but it is not an enforcing body. It is just an adjudicating body, and it makes statements about its position and the position of the international community, but that's as far as it goes. All right? Okay. Secretariat. Okay, so I'm a member of the Secretariat. Fain is a member of the Secretariat, and we do the work of the United Nations like this. Right? Secretariat in any organization, CARICOM, OAS, EU, there's a secretariat that really does day-to-day work to ensure that the states are supported to, in all of the functions that they've decided are important. Technical cooperation, human rights, communications, all those things. And that's all the secretariat is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. All right, so these are just some photos very quickly. This is the Security Council hall. All right, and this is the Security Council in session. This is the ECOSOC chamber. So remember, the United Nations headquarters is in New York. And in New York, you have these different halls that we created for these different bodies. All right. All right. International Court of Justice is in The Hague, all right, in the Netherlands. It's the only one of these bodies that's not in New York. All right, it's the Secretariat building. So you have the headquarters of the Secretariat in New York, and then you have field offices throughout the world. Remember, there are 193 states, and you can't do the work of the United Nations from one hub in New York. So you have to have field offices, and that's what we call duty stations are throughout the world. But the headquarters of the Secretariat, so my headquarters and Fane's headquarters, are in New York, and the Secretariat offices are housed in the Secretariat building. All right, trusteeship, council chamber. So let's see it. Well, it's not very clear, but that photo is actually a photo of empty seats. I wanted it to be that way because nothing is happening there. So now it's used for other meetings. All right, and well, I'm sure you can't see this, it's not very clear, but this really is the organizational chart that breaks down what I've just been describing. All right. Okay, and then we're going to hear more about human rights, because I know that your resolution is going to be about peace and human rights. So we're going to talk more about human rights. But I wanted to remind you that the resolve about human rights comes out of the charter. So we the peoples, we reaffirm our faith in fundamental human rights. This is part of the charter. And the founding document of human rights in the United Nations is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Yeah. All right. Okay, but I'll leave that explanation. I'll just say quickly, though, that one of the ways in which the United Nations supports human rights is through its programs and its outreach, which is part of what I do in the Information Center. And these programs include programs of education, because we can't promote human rights. We can't understand how we've gone wrong in the past. We cannot find ways of moving forward if we don't understand what these events were, why they happened, and how we can do better. So examples are slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, the genocide in Rwanda, in Srebrenica, the Holocaust. So all of those things are examples of where we failed and what we need to learn from it. Are there any other examples that we can learn from? No? That's it? We're good? Okay. Well, that's promising.
Morning, everyone. They also had the genocide in Congo as well.
Yeah.
And Germany, the leader at that time had it as his area for plantations and the worst type of slavery that the history has seen in a long time. So there he would have them dismembered if they did not completed their daily work. So Congo was a playground for Germany and the worst genocide in history. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? No? All right, but the idea is that we need to understand what has happened in our history so that we can find ways of doing better. And we can find ways through organizations like the United Nations to work together. Yeah? All right. And then, of course, there's peace. And we'll hear more about peace and the United Nations and how the United Nations tries to maintain peace and what are our priorities with respect to peace and building a culture of peace. All right. And what we want to do is promote social progress and better standards of life And of course, that is the Sustainable Development Goals. Right now, that expression of wanting to promote a better life are the Sustainable Development Goals. And as I'm about to close, if someone can tell me what they are. When we say Sustainable Development Goals, what is that? What are we talking about? Okay, someone name 3 Sustainable Development Goals. Give me one. One, just one.
One, reducing poverty.
Okay, ending poverty. There you go.
Best
Right, yeah.
go ahead. No, I can do the
That's
next one. Go
very
ahead.
good.
No, best go ahead.
Uh-huh,
I'm
yeah.
not gonna do the next one. I can do the next one. Gender equality.
Gender equality. Okay, right. Somebody over here. You
No,
tell. Oh, sorry.
Clean energy.
Clean energy. Okay, right. Someone else?
Life below water.
Okay, all right. Yes. Tell me.
Climate action.
Action. Anyone else? Yeah.
Global healthcare.
Okay, all right. And one more. Oh, sorry.
Reduced inequality. Reduce inequality.
Reduce inequality. All right, thank you. And one more.
Food security.
Okay, fine. Now, somebody tell me, so we know what there's 17 of those, right? Those are just some of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. All right, somebody tell me what that means. When we say Sustainable Development Goals, right? Who was first?
When we refer to sustainable development, we refer to a long-term effects for many generations to come, where it's not something that within the next 50 or 100 years, it will disintegrate, something that will continue to perpetuate. For example, like having better food security, as she said, not only something that will last within like a decade or 50 years, something that will continue to be replenished as time goes on.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Sustainable Development Goals is about ensuring that the gains that we make now can continue. And we have to do it in a way and through a process that is sustainable. So it has to be a process that includes everyone who is affected and everyone who's affected, so that everyone who's affected can make decisions about what that development should look like. So I am going to stop now and I'm going to hand back to Fane. All right, and the idea was to give you an introduction and a sense of what we're talking about when we talk about the United Nations. And this is, hopefully, this is going to allow you to do more research, to delve deeper, and to try to understand more clearly what the organization is about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amanda. And we will be sharing the slides with Lara and the team. So for anything that couldn't play, you will be able to see it when those slides are sent to you. I'm going to ask Matthew, if you can help me give out 2 prizes. Do we have a question online?
Yes, this is Hans speaking, Hans Schilders from Rotary Club Central Port of Spain. Sorry to interrupt for a moment. There is an online participant with the display name user. We have been trying to contact this person now several times to change his or her display name to know who is in the meeting. Please, user, change your display name or answer to the chat. If not, we will have to take you out of the meeting. Only registered people can be in this meeting. Sorry for the interrupt. Thank you very much, and please go ahead.
No problem. Thank you. So we have some goodie bags. We don't have enough for everybody today, but we will have for you on debate day. But I just wanted to encourage you all to keep answering during the session. So I wanted to hand out 2 goodie bags, one to the gentleman who named all 6 languages of the UN. Thank you very much. And to the Barry White brother man in the back there who give me in the best baritone voice ever what the ICJ voice, what the ICJ is. So you have a voice for radio. Think about it. So if y'all could stand up just to make it easier for and Barry White is before all the time. I know you have no idea who I'm talking about. It's okay. Those of us who are old enough, we know. If you all could stand up so that Matthew could give you your goodie bag. So keep engaging. As we get ready to introduce Reba, just a wake and shake. We're going to play another quick energizer. I need 6 people. Grandstand, North Stand, 6 people from Grandstand, 6 people from North Stand down at the bottom here. We're playing our rock, paper, scissors competition. I need 6. Quickly, but no rushing. Just 6. If you see 6 from your side, don't bother to come after that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. No more than 6. Everybody else sit down. Quick. All right. Controller gonna switch to the handheld mic if that's okay. 6 on each side. All right. So I need these 6 lined up here. Start from the stairs, come forward. These 6 start from the stairs, come forward. So you're turning to face. Wait, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Love you all. Sorry. Thank you. All right. If you could stand here. Right. And just you're gonna face this way. You're facing right. So everybody, we need now. With respect for all body boundaries, absolutely take a half a step back so we can compact the line of it. Right. But you have to stay, don't let her over bounce you to the stairs, but good. Right. Step back a little bit. Okay, good. And right, same here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This I can count. Okay, just step forward. All right. We need to split everybody. So from the stairs. Good. All right. So this is your landmark here and yours here. All right. Good. Now everybody stand over soon. Now that we know where the 6 fall. So everybody go over so. 1 from North Stand, 1 from Grandstand. I need my rock, paper, scissors fighters up here. 1, 1. First 2 to come. Right? We have North Stand. Come Grandstand. Right. So you all come this way. Relax the line. And you all relax the line and go this way. I'm going to tell you all what to do. Relax the line. Come step back this way. Get out to the line. Come and stand in a group over this way. Stand in a group off to the back there. All right, so you face here, you face here. I'm moving line. 1 second. Good. Come forward so that your line can form behind you. Good. So we have grandstands, group of people. You all just stand in a bunch there. We have North Stands, group of people in a bunch there. These are the rock, paper, scissors champions. They're going to go in repeat rounds of rock, paper, scissors. When North Stand wins, 1 person from North Stand's line starts the line. Everyone else is in a group to the side. When Grandstand wins the round, 1 person from Grandstand's line starts to form the line. It's the first person to reach their marker, the first team, I should say, to reach their marker wins. We get it? All right, good. Ready? Rock, paper, scissors. All right, so Grandstand. So we start in the line from the stairs. First person starts the line from the stairs, so everybody got it clear. So stand up by the stairs just as you did when you formed the practice line. Line number 1. Here we go. Ready? Rock, paper, scissors. Go again. Rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. There we go. We have 1 from North Stand. Start your line. Good. Ready? Rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. All right. Grandstand. Next person in line. Ready? Rock, paper, scissors. North Stand. Right. Make sure you start from the back. Right. Rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. Right. There we go. Grandstand. Right. Go ahead. Yeah. Rock, paper, scissors. All right. Good. North Stand. Ready? Rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. All right. Here we go again. North Stand. Rock, paper, scissors. All right. Grandstand. Close. Rock, paper, scissors. Nice. North Stand. It's you. Sorry. Right, there we go. All right, so we have 2 remaining, 1 remaining. Rock, paper, scissors.
All right. 1-1. Who's the one on the side remaining to get in line? Okay, good. Rock, paper, scissors. All right. Well done. Well done, Roxanne. Well done. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. You may take your seats. Yeah, I think so. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, Control. 10 o'clock on the dot. All right, so we are moving on now. So you got an introduction to what the UN is as an organization and all of its major organs. We're going to start to focus a little bit on the substance matter that you all will need to prepare for your delegates' contributions to the Model UN debate. And we're going to start to zero in on the human rights and peace themes that you all will be linking together when you formulate your resolution. So I have the pleasure now to introduce our only online presenter for today because she's in the beautiful Bahamas, not here with us. We're all very jealous. She used to be here with us in our office at UN House on Chancery Lane, and she's literally left us for bluer waters. Her name is Reba Granado John. She is the Human Rights Officer at the Caribbean Community or CARICOM Regional Office for the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. Reba, you're running your slides through your presentation. If you happen to have a video that you're going to play, I don't think Control needs too much of a signal from you because you're purely online, but do just let him know that you're about to play a video. Other than that, you should be able to share, and the floor is yours. Don't forget to unmute.
Yeah, sorry, great. I was just trying to see if I can share. Let me see if my share is coming through. I do have a video to play. Why am I not? Okay, share. All right, I see myself. That means I'm sharing. Let me know when you can see my presentation on. Can you see my presentation?
No, haven't seen it pop up yet. You have sharing rights, right?
Yeah, I can see it sharing on my let me double check. Okay, I've come off.
I do have it here. If you need me to run it, I can run it for you.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not sharing. Let me okay, let me see. Okay, let me make sure I'm trying to make sure I'm sharing my sound as well. And
there we go. It's popping in now.
Fantastic. Let me put it into slideshow. Let me know when you can see it in slideshow. Is it showing?
It's in slideshow mode. Yeah, we do see your notes off to the side, but that shouldn't be a big deal.
Okay, let me change that layout. I don't know how to change that layout. Okay, I'm trying to see how I can best not show my notes, but let me end. Right, present to view.
Yeah, try that. There we go. Proper full screen now.
Okay, great, fantastic. Thank you so much, Fane, for that introduction. Unfortunately, the Bahamas is under a tropical storm warning, so not great weather here. But I'm happy to be here and to connect this morning to talk a bit about human rights and peace building. I'm going to do the human rights section of it, and then Dylan is going to come on with the peace section of it. So first of all, I wanted to start with just a definition, of human rights. So what are human rights? We know that human rights are these universal freedoms and guarantees that protect individuals and groups against actions and omissions that interfere with fundamental freedoms. And human rights belong to all humans, regardless of race, color, sex, language, religion, political, other opinion, national, social origin, property, birth, or other status. So we don't have to do anything to get human rights. Once we're born, we're human, we have human rights. And that's very important, to note as you go through this, is that human rights are not given because you deserve them. We have human rights because we are born human. I want to know if you guys could access this Menti. Just look, point your phones at the QR code and let me know if you can give examples of human rights for me, please. I can't see the room. Fane, can you access the Menti?
You may, if you have any like code or anything, you could give them to call out. You could
The
also call
code
that
is
out.
91, go to menti.com, menti.com, and the code is 91394921. So you can either scan the QR code or go to menti.com and use the code 91394921.
91394921.
Right, I see some answers coming in. Access to education, yes. Freedom of speech. Right to food, more examples of human rights coming in. Food, shelter, education, adequate housing, education, healthcare, life, running water, freedom of religion. I see right to food, ability to practice religion without persecution, food security. So we know what human rights are. We can give examples of human rights. We know what we're talking about when we say we all have the rights for these freedoms and for these right to fair trial, innocence of proving guilty. Yes. Thank you so much for your examples. I feel like we all can name human rights and we all know what human rights are. So that's a good start. Moving to the next slide. So development of human rights. Amanda would have gone through development of United Nations system and how that was created in the aftermath of the Second World War to help the United Nations build sustainable peace and security and prevent future conflicts. Coming out of that was the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This was adopted by the UN General Assembly on the 10th of December, 1948. And so this Universal Declaration of Human Rights, I was happy to see people standing up just now and being asked if you've ever heard of it before. It contains 30 articles, which put human rights, all the rights on an equal footing: civil, political, economic, social, and cultural. And so in the words of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is the recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family, the foundation of the rule of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. And so human rights and peace building are two complementary objectives of the United Nations. And what is the importance of this Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Well, it's the first time that countries came together and say, here's what we would want to be, to observe a common set of principles and a common set of values. And we want to codify that and put that in a document. And what also is very important is sometimes you hear people say, oh, human rights is a foreign concept, it's not a concept that we know of, but we do know of it here in the Caribbean. Many constitutions, the rights based in the constitutions are very much reflective of those human rights in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And so this is a very, very important document because one, is one of the most translated documents in the world. And two, it played a foundation and a fundamental role in developing a set of international, regional, and national institutions. Remember, this came before decolonization and states had independence. And so they used the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to set out their own constitutions and their own laws aimed at protecting and promoting human rights and defending human rights. So in essence, it is very much the source of the international human rights protection system and where our human rights come from. Now, following the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is a declaration, right? We needed something with some legal effect. And this is how the International Human Rights Treaty bodies were founded. And so we have the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. And all three, we take that to be the International Bill of Rights. And so as I'm going to go through the next slides, what kind of rights am I talking about when I talk about civil and political rights? And what do I mean when I say economic, social, and cultural rights? And again, with treaties, we know that states have to ratify, they have to agree to be bound by treaties, right? So states can say, okay, I don't agree to be bound by this, and I'm not going to ratify this, I'm not going to join on to this treaty. So states have that, the ability to consent to be bound. And then after those, the International Bill of Rights came in, you know, there was this thinking that we actually need treaties to address specific phenomena and specific groups. It's not about giving groups or phenomenon additional rights, but it's about looking at the rights that they have and realizing that, okay, they are vulnerable, there's a specific phenomena we need to address, and we need to make sure that we have distilled the economic, social, cultural rights and distilled the civil and political rights with respect to these specific phenomena and specific groups. And so we have the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. Can anyone let me know what was going on in the world that this was so important to have as one of the human rights treaties? Anyone? What was happening? So that the state said, you know what, we need an international convention on the elimination of all forms of racial discrimination.
We getting the mic to someone, Reba.
Okay.
The Holocaust.
Okay, the Holocaust came obviously with the invention of the UN. That's what was the response for that. But what specifically was also happening at that point in time was apartheid, right? So apartheid was happening. Lots of decolonization was happening at that time, and so they said, you know what, racial discrimination is absolutely a phenomena that we need to address, right, in the world. And then we had the Convention Against Torture and Other Inhuman, Degrading Treatment or Punishment, the Convention on Enforced Disappearances, and then for specific groups, the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Again, very important to note, as we say, human rights don't just apply when you're an adult, they apply when you're born, and so children have rights as well. The Convention of the Rights of Migrant Workers and their Families, and then the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So this is an overview of the International Human Rights Treaty system. And this is important in the context of what we're going to talk about for peace, because we're going to talk about, well, how does the international system and how do these mechanisms play a role in countries, and how do they play a role in making sure that we have, that human rights are monitored? And so I said I was going to come to some of the list of civil and political rights and economic, social, and cultural rights. So civil and political rights, we know those rights. Those rights are freedom from torture, freedom of opinion, expression, freedom of peaceful assembly, freedom of association, fair trial laws, due process guarantees, those sorts of things. Right to life are what we're talking about when we talk about civil and political rights. When we're talking about economic, social, cultural rights, the right to work, the right to adequate standard of living, food, clothing, housing, the right to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health, education, participation, favorable conditions of work. And so those are sort of the two sets of human rights. Now, what we always say is that human rights are inalienable, right? So you can't say, okay, this right is, you know, we want these sets of rights, but we don't really need these sets of rights, because in reality, if you don't have the economic, social, and cultural rights, and you also don't have any right to protest, then what is the, you know, how are you holding governments accountable? How are you going to say, okay, I want this right, but I don't have this right? You don't have freedom from torture, you don't have freedom from slavery, you can't have education, you can't have water, you can't have food. So all of these things, you know, operate together with respect to the realization of all of our human rights. Now, the right to peace and human rights. So the Declaration of the Right to Peace says in Article 1, everyone has the right to enjoy peace such that all human rights are promoted and protected and development is fully realized. And Article 55 of the UN Charter establishes the promotion and protection of human rights as a core purpose of the UN, essential for the creation of conditions of stability, well-being, which are necessary for peaceful and friendly relations among nations. Just to also state here and put a pin that the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the mandate is the protection and promotion of human rights and that full realization of human rights for all. And as the office has worked, I think everyone has realized, okay, you cannot have peace without human rights, and the importance of those concepts. I'm going to try and play a video.
The right to
let me know if you
peace
can hear
is
it.
the mother of all human rights. Without peace, the right to peace is the mother of all human rights. Without peace, all other rights are quashed. It is urgent that we devise ways to counter warmongering, fear, and the illogic of escalating hatred and hostility, which bring short-term profit to a few while ruining the lives and rights of millions. We need to regain a mindset of peace. This means the art of de-escalation, keeping communication channels open, rebuilding trust, and the long-term work of healing and reconciliation, re-establishing a sense of interconnectedness and shared destiny of all humanity.
No one interrupted, so I suspect you can hear it. I couldn't, but it is a video from the Volker Turk, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and talking very much about the fact that peace is the foundation and the mother of all human rights. If we don't have peace, then we cannot say in any sense that we have human rights at all. So that is extremely important. Right. So what then are state obligations with respect to human rights? And I'm also going to distill that a bit into state obligations with respect to peace building as well. So states have obligations to respect human rights. They must refrain from interfering directly or indirectly with the enjoyment of the right. And that is very, very important. And to protect human rights, states have the responsibility to take measures that prevent third parties from interfering with the enjoyment of the right. So for instance, we're talking about anyone else. So for instance, if we're talking about employment, we're talking about states have to take measures to make sure that your employer is not exploiting you. If we're talking about peace, states have to take measures to ensure that we're safe, to ensure that a criminal gang, to ensure that a terrorist group, cannot come and disrupt and interfere with your rights. With respect to fulfilling as well, I think that's also a very important part. States have to must adopt the appropriate legislative, administrative, budgetary, judicial, promotional, and other measures towards the full realization of that right, and directly provide assistance or services for the realization of these rights. Right? So for instance, we know that economic, social, cultural rights are more progressive rights, right? We know that everyone at this time is not going to have the same level of access to food, water, and health. But states have to take measures and actively take measures to fulfill these rights. It can't just be that, okay, we're a small country, we can't get we can't get the same level as everyone else. It needs to be that states are taking their measures and they are doing what they need to do to provide those rights. In the context of peace, we know that equality is extremely important. And so it has to be that states are taking steps with respect to making sure that we do have equality. Pardon me, yes. What is this window? Okay, so just a quick overview of the UN human rights mechanisms, which I think are very important. Again, this is just laying the foundations with respect to human rights and with respect to what exists in the UN main human rights mechanisms. So we have the General Assembly, which we talked about, and the General Assembly adopts the human rights treaties. And what we have with respect to monitoring the human rights treaties is the concept of treaty bodies. So these treaty bodies are committees that meet every couple of years. States are supposed to send in their reports. We know the main treaties. And then the treaty bodies reviewed and said, okay, so what's going on with respect to the rights of women in your country? What's going on with respect to this situation, persons with disabilities? And so basically it is a process by which these treaty bodies who are experts in their field, so they're experts that are not remunerated, can then review the situation with respect to human rights and give states recommendations, also known as concluding observations, with respect to fulfilling human rights. So that's one main human rights mechanism, and that's how we saw the treaty body system, how that is monitored and how we have accountability with respect to that. The next human rights mechanisms comes from the Human Rights Council, which is a universal periodic review. And that is a peer-to-peer state-led review. We're going to talk about it a bit later, but it essentially states come together and they review each other. So they say, okay, the state will submit a report saying this is the human rights situation in my country. Now, the difference between the treaty bodies and the universal periodic review is the universal periodic review touches all human rights. Again, with the treaty bodies, you have to sign on to that treaty. You have to ratify that treaty for it to apply to you. So you're not going to be reviewed on the basis of let's just say, a specific phenomena if you have not ratified that treaty. The universal periodic review covers all human rights. So there's not a situation of, okay, I didn't sign on to this treaty, so I'm not going to be reviewed on this particular subject matter. The other human rights mechanisms that operate is special procedures. Special procedures, again, is being above experts. So for certain thematic areas, you have experts, for instance, on migrants, or experts on the rights of children, or experts on terrorism and human rights. And so they too are not bound by treaty body ratification. So for instance, if something happening and you haven't ratified a particular treaty, they can send communications to states. They're also experts, so they also do sort of expert opinions and reports on situations around the world, thematic areas around the world. So that is what basically the main human rights mechanisms operate as, and OHCHR supports the work of the Human Rights Council and these mechanisms. And I wanted to go in a little bit with respect to the universal periodic review, because it's been specifically identified as one of the main important human rights mechanisms when we're talking about peace and peace building. So again, as I said, this is a peer review. Each state is reviewed in a 4-5-year cycle, and these reviews are based on national reports, compilation reports from UN experts, and compilation reports from stakeholders like CSOs, NGOs, all of that. So the UPR is a bridge between human rights and sustainable development and sustaining peace. So the concept is that in this universal periodic review, states can say, okay, what's going on with respect to equality in your country? We're making recommendations with respect to ensuring that women and girls have rights, ensuring that persons with disabilities have rights, ensuring that we're looking at the rights of everyone else. And so these recommendations also go towards sustainable development and also sustaining peace, because again, we come to see a lot that if you don't have human rights, then it's very hard to have peace in your country. So what then is the intersection between human rights and peace building? So human rights is the foundation to sustaining peace. This creation of the International Human Rights Framework comprises universal norms agreed to and recognized by states as essential elements and principles for building resilient, peaceful, and inclusive and just societies. So I just went through a bit of the International Human Rights Framework. So we can see that this International Human Rights Framework, which has the all the information with respect to human rights and mechanisms, how they can contribute, right? Because if you don't have human rights, you can't build a peaceful, resilient, inclusive, just society. And I think that's really important to note. And so these human rights interventions, tools, and mechanisms are part of that collective toolbox of the UN system and the international communities to support member states. These mechanisms allow for dialogue, they allow for resolution of tensions, conflict, violence within communities and in states, identifying those in vulnerable situations or those left behind, and providing ways and means in which they can be empowered to overcome their vulnerability. And so this utilization of this human rights toolbox ensures the effectiveness and sustainability of development and conflict prevention efforts. So human rights is also a tool to be used when we're talking about peace building, because if we are talking and we're coming together and we're having constructive dialogue, then that is also going towards sustaining peace. And these mechanisms, as I said, to review and to make sure that states are being held accountable with respect to human rights, allows for that. It allows for everyone to realize, okay, who's being left behind, who's vulnerable, and what can we do? Another intersection with respect to human rights and peace building is the concept of these of the principles. So we apply human rights principles in peace building. Inclusivity and meaningful participation, extremely important. Situations where there may be a breakdown of peace and cohesiveness can be as a result of the lack of inclusivity and meaningful participation of groups, minority groups. And so if you're talking about peace building and we're talking about efforts towards maintaining a peace, then it has to be inclusive. It has to ensure that people can meaningfully participate and that the voices can be heard. I think I saw someone say that when I asked about human rights. It's very important that people are heard with respect to any sort of measure, policy, legislative policy, legal policy, anything like that. The other human rights principle that we see throughout is this promotion and protection and expansion of an open, free, safe, enabling civic space. So civil society has a very important role when it comes to holding governments accountable. There has to be someone that has a voice that says, okay, this is happening, this should not be happening. What are we doing here? How are we making sure that we have cohesive, peaceful societies? And so it's important, we know in some countries, people cannot speak out against the government. And so it's important that we have this promotion and protection of this enabling civic space going throughout any efforts with respect to peace building. Another important human rights principle is non-discrimination. Again, very much the foundation. The foundation of human rights is that we're all equal, all human, so that if we're all equal, there should not be any discrimination on any grounds if we're all equal, if we really do believe that we're all equal. And so that is an important human rights principle that, again, contributes to peace. If there's no division, if there's no discrimination or unequal treatment, then we can have a good foundation with respect to sustaining peace. Accountability is another human rights principle that you can find throughout. With respect to accountability, it's about holding governments and states responsible because they are the duty bearers when it comes to human rights. We sitting here, we are rights holders. And so the governments and states have a responsibility, as I was saying, with the state obligations to make sure that we can access our human rights, to make sure that we can realize our human rights. And so it's very important when you're talking peace building, when you're talking peace, that there's a sense of accountability that is throughout the process. I think Dylan will talk a bit more about sustainable development and SDG 16, but I saw people stand up when Fane asked if you know about the SDGs. And I think I just wanted very importantly to point out that this 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development encompasses a range of structural issues that underlie or contribute to violent conflict, fragility, poverty, inequality, and includes one of the 17 goals being SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. And so this sustainable development goal promotes peaceful and inclusive societies for that sustainable development, provides access to justice for all, and build effective and accountable and inclusive institutions at all levels. So it has a lot of ways we talked about just now, this idea of inclusivity, which is extremely important, as we know, for that foundation. Strong institutions, going back to accountability, there has to be strong institutions in a country that can ensure that everyone has peace and justice. So that's extremely important. I wanted to talk a bit about human rights along the peace continuum, because we know that in terms of human rights violations can simultaneously be a cause, a trigger, or consequence of violence and conflict. Conflict prevention, monitoring and addressing violations, peace processes, human rights in mediation and agreements, and post-conflict recovery, justice, accountability, and reparations, and institution building, strengthening rule of law, and governance. I got a time check, so I don't want to go too far, but I do want to go into conflict prevention. Violations of human rights are often a precursor to and a consequence of violence and conflict. So when we're looking at all these human rights mechanisms and look at what the human rights status is, we can look at that and say, okay, hold on, something is going on here. Why are we getting all these reports about inequalities happening? Something is going on. So it can be a trigger, it can be an early warning, which is extremely important. And it has a role to play in conflict prevention. It can identify root causes, drivers of conflict, discrimination and inequalities, and also provide states with help, essentially. So just an example of a human rights analysis contributing to early warning in Malawi, data on the 2019 election-related violence, facilitated an early warning analysis on the root causes of violence, as well as the primary causes of related human rights violations. So people were frustrated with social exclusion, frustrated with their lack of economic, social, cultural rights, and that led to protests. The protests began as friendly, but then they turned violent, and then the police response escalated the violence. The police did not have the tools to deal with protests of this level. And so looking back at that, the UN was able to create a prevention plan and to identify that technical assistance and capacity building was needed for the police force going forward with respect to dealing with these issues. I want to play a short video and we have a quick discussion and maybe I can wrap it up. So. Can anyone tell me what's happening in the video? Like, what do you see in the video? What themes do you see? What is happening in this video?
I would say discrimination was happening within the video.
Yeah, discrimination was happening. Anyone else? What did you see in the video? What is happening in this video?
She said discrimination of certain families and they had to flee from certain areas.
Anyone else? Notice anything else?
I saw discrimination against Asian people, mostly people of East Asian descent.
Anything else?
I saw the politicians' reaction towards the discrimination was not positive or like telling the people to like calm down. He was kind of encouraging it in a way.
Right, we saw the politician, yeah. Go ahead. Anyone else?
I saw racial propaganda and how it affect the people watching the video.
Yeah, very important to notice. We saw the reactions of these young people watching the video and their heads are down, you know, how that affects them. Anything else?
I saw the life-changing ramifications of this racism, like their house was burned down. What are they going to do now just because someone didn't like them because of their race?
Yeah, so we saw it escalate. We saw that escalation happening. Let me ask, so how can, we saw it lead very much on the start with the politicians saying all these things, they don't belong, you know, this sort of us versus them. So how can hateful words or messages leads to fights, leads to even bigger conflicts? At the end, what we saw was something on fire, right? A building on fire. So that's the question. How can hateful words lead to bigger conflicts? Anyone?
Yes, just a moment.
Yeah. So when there's I guess, a governing body or person that a large amount of people deem as being a good leader or a good governor, when they push their own, I guess, propaganda or their own opinions about these groups, instead of thinking individually, the people that may agree with the majority of what they may say may, choose to react in a certain way to kind of show that, hey, I support this particular person without even thinking independently that, wait, this actually may be something that's quite hurtful.
Yeah, very much so. Incitement, right? We see that the hateful words and messages can lead to incitement. Is that a peaceful society, do you think? Even before the building is on fire, do we think that makes for a peaceful society? Anyone? Anyone else want to answer that question? Is it a peaceful society that we're looking at?
Good morning, Miss. To answer your question, how can hateful words or messages lead to fights, bullying, or even bigger conflicts? So as we saw in the video, there was the person that was being, bullied in the source in the video, you see, we're seeing these hurtful words as lead to embarrassment, lack of self-esteem, and eventually lead to anger. So that anger now, that build up rage, because if someone's telling you so hateful words and treating you bad and making all these mean comments, they will have enough one day, and that will cause the fights to happen. And those hateful words, those are a source of bullying and even bigger conflicts. Those fights could make even big, that could hurt people outside. If you're fighting and someone's passing, you could hit them, that could cause more and more. So to answer your other question, Miss, no, that is not a peaceful society. If anything, that's the complete opposite by a landslide. Hateful words and peace in the same sentence, that doesn't make any sense. So that's my answer.
Very much so, very much so. We're seeing that because what happens if you feel excluded? What happens if you feel like people are discriminating against you? What happens? How do you feel? How do you react? How does that come across? What do you do? Do you take it all the time, or do at some point you say, okay, hold on, this is enough? And so the next question is, how does hate speech go against the idea that everyone deserves equal respect and equal rights? And we talked about a little bit of one of the human rights principles here. How does hate speech go against this idea that everyone deserves respect and human rights?
Well, Miss, on one hand, the politician is exercising free speech, but because they have such a large platform, their words, as seen in the video, can lead to violence against people of East Asian descent. So the person who walked past the Asian man and spat on him, it showed how these words have a real world effect. So it's not respecting the human dignity, which is a human right of those people of East Asian descent.
Yeah, and it's also preaching is going completely against the principle of non-discrimination, right? We wouldn't have hate speech and this idea that this person is different and we hate them because they're different. If we understood that everyone has access to equal rights, the man is just standing on the street working and someone is spitting on him. And so that was part of the question I asked just now is it a peaceful society? And I think I answered that one. Can a community or country be truly peaceful if some people are treated unfairly because of who they are? And we can see, no, it cannot be truly peaceful if people are treated unfairly. Last question, why do you think respecting human rights can help prevent violence and build peace? Why do you think respecting human rights can help prevent violence and build peace? Or do you think respecting human rights can help prevent violence and build peace?
Morning. As we saw
Morning.
before in Maui, there's a direct correlation between there's a linkage between human rights and peace building by ignoring certain principles of human rights, such as the right to social inclusion. We ignore other people's, we negatively affect other people, and these social inclusions can create frustration in a society, which often leads to, like you said in Maui, the protests, which can ignite into further violence and conflict, which the UN's main goal is to resolve and peacefully conclude these conflicts. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Reba will take one more and then we can wrap.
There's a direct link between the violation of human rights and violence and conflict, because if your human rights are being violated, you will resist. People will engage in violent protests to get back their human rights. Additionally, if you deny someone's human rights, you see them as an object. So if you're harming an object, it's not that serious, then they're a human being. So those are two ways that denying human rights can lead to conflict.
Yeah, very much so. Very good point. So we saw the violation of human rights can lead to conflict, and we also saw in the example of Malawi, if people don't have economic social coverage rights, people can't work, people can't, enjoy walking down the street and without being attacked. We can see how that can happen. So this presentation will be shared. I just wanted to wrap it up right here. I have included in this presentation some reports for you that can be very helpful with respect to your research and your preparation going forward. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Reba. And for my last two respondents, if you all could stand. So the Malawi example we got there and the objectification rationale we got, if you all could stand. And Elias, if you could give them some gift bags for their really great answers. Thank you so much for being participatory. So we are going to move on to our third presentation from Dr. Dylan Kerrigan. Yeah, boy. Give him a little doctorate, boy. Yeah. They say stay in school, but he really took that to heart. He stayed and stayed and stayed and became a U Electro. Let me get back to the share screen option. Okay. Right, there we go. Okay. Is the online audience seeing the full presentation?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Dr. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Fane. And thank you to my colleagues who presented before. There's a little photo from Model UN previous years. As was mentioned, my name's Dylan Kerrigan. Previously, I was a lecturer at UE in anthropology, and there's something I'm actually going to come back to now. I've got about 30 minutes to cover quite a lot of the material, so please excuse me if you feel I'm going a little too fast, but I'll try to slow down on the key areas. In addition, you'll be shared the slides. But I just wanted to say that this kind of agenda sort of gives us a little arc for how we kind of do our work. You know, we often think about the need for concepts, the need for data, the need for where we can enter into conflict to try to start peace building, and also the idea that there are systems, organizations, and advocacy through which we need to try to talk about peace. The other important point I wanted to mention about what I'm going to talk about today is we've heard a lot of great stuff about state level and national level conflict. And I think obviously that's very important when you're thinking about peace. You need to think about, you know, those state level kind of wars and stuff. But a lot of my work as a peace and development officer is about community level peace building. And that's what I do. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about that level today, okay? Right, so as I said, I'm a peace and development officer. You know, in some ways it's useful to think about the difference between peace and security and peace and development. We hear a lot about peace and security, and clearly peace and security is very important. But peace and development is also intrinsic to peace building. The reason I put up these kind of my background in anthropology, sociology, criminology, and also all these different areas of focus is because we're going to get to a point where we start to understand that peace has many facets to it, and therefore you need to look at it from many different dimensions. As an anthropologist, I go and I speak to people. I take a very bottom-up lens, what's happening in communities. As a sociologist, I think about institutions and their relationship to human beings and what we can do based on what these institutions tell us we can do. And then as a criminologist, I also have to think about the rules and the laws in society and what happens when those are broken. The other thing I think about a lot is social cohesion, and thanks to Reba for talking about human rights. But for me, one of the ways that I think about human rights is a social cohesion. You can't really have social cohesion unless you have strong human rights. All those things that we have a right to, they're the things that create the glue between each other, right? So social cohesion is another way. So I've got a lot of arms, I speak with my hands. Not a lot of arms, I've just got 2 arms, but I speak a lot with my hands. And it's important to think about, you know, what is the glue that holds us together? What are the things that really kind of help us to do peace building with each other? So yeah, I think a lot about community level research, youth studies, political economy, prisons, mental health, and I'm going to show you some evidence about these things as we move forward. So as a peace and development officer, I actually give a lot of advice. I do a lot of political analysis, a lot of conflict analysis, a lot of social cohesion research. This shows you some of the highlights of one of the UN mechanisms for peace building, which is the deployment of peace and development advisors and officers around the world. The one on the left says that PDAs have supported national peace architecture in 58% of the places they are, that we support critical dialogues, that we support national policies for conflict prevention, that we support the participation of women in decision-making, that we support preventive diplomacy, that we support the participation of youth. And so we do a lot of things like country analyses, we do a lot of things like peace and conflict analyses, and we do a lot of programming to build peace. And as I said, you'll get these slides so you can consider these things later. This is just a map to show you where we cover. Previously, there was 2 of us in the Caribbean, but due to some UN cuts, there's only 1 of us currently, and I actually cover 24 territories and states and nations, which is obviously impossible for one person. So I concentrate where I'm really needed. So what is peace? I think this is a good place for us to start. And I'll use a method that Fain used previously. If you think, I'm going to go through all 3 of these, right? So if you think peace is no violence, I want you to kind of stand up and clap and make a noise, right? So go ahead. Who thinks peace is no violence? Nice. Very good, very good. Who thinks peace is about justice and human rights? Very good. Who thinks peace is about equality and opportunity? All right. I think you understand, right? Peace is multidimensional, right? It's always all of these things. We can't have peace without all of these things. My colleague Reba, she mentioned SDG 16, and SDG 16 is the one I work on a lot. And it has lots of subcomponents. 16.1 is reduce violence everywhere. Protect 16.2, protect children. As I say, this is something you can see, but again, it shows you that there's many dimensions to peace. And the UN often says that peace isn't just the absence of war, it rests on these three connected pillars: security, justice and human rights, and sustainable development. I had a quick question for you then. Which one of these pillars do you think is most undervalued in TNT and why? Which one of these things, security, justice and human rights, or sustainable development, which one do you think is most undervalued in TNT currently and why that might be? No right or wrong answers here. You can go ahead and tell me what you think. Yeah.
I believe it's sustainable development because throughout Trinidad history, we've been heavily dependent on crude oil and non-renewable resources, and only recently methods have been implemented to use not renewable resources, but still we are still heavily dependent, and that is why I believe so.
Great connection. I think there's a lot to be said for that answer. I think that's very smart. Anybody else want to say what they think is most undervalued of those three: security, justice and human rights, or sustainable development?
In terms of, he gave an economic example. I think in terms of social, I believe that Trinidad and Tobago's government does not prioritize the youth in terms of ensuring that we have a sustainable social future. In terms of legislation, laws, putting certain judicial systems in place that will not just benefit us in the present moment, but later on. I feel like a perfect example would be in terms of, sorry about that, gang violence and whatnot. Yes, we have the SOE and whatnot to protect us now, but what is the long-term redress for that? In 5 years, 10 years, what are we going to have? Because, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we had the exact same issue, and it's still a reoccurring problem.
Hey, so that's a great response, and it's actually a really good bridge for my next slide. Very good responses from you. So thinking about negative and positive peace, right? So in my work, we think about different types of peace, and I think what you just were speaking about when you're talking about an SOE, it's reactive, it calms things down. But what's the long-term sustainability of that? It's kind of reactive. So we might call that negative peace, right? Negative peace is sort of the absence of direct violence. It's silencing the guns. It can be temporary or fragile. It is reactive, right? So in many ways, an SOE is a type of negative peace, because in a way you're subduing things, right? You're pushing things down, and what happens is you get peace. But as you'll probably realize from your own lives, those tensions and problems kind of can move, right? Even if you squash it down, they'll move somewhere else, or maybe you squash it down for a while and the state of emergency ends and it comes back, right? So we also talk about positive peace, and this is what I work for: long-term sustainable peace. So I often think peace and security is kind of the first thing, right? But peace and development, I often say, is the second thing, kind of positive peace, sort of linking about the root causes, the drivers, the things that would make peace building sustainable. These two kinds of peace give us a way to also think about two things that happen a lot in our societies. And that's securitization, which I think is quite a negative police thing. It's heavy policing, it's prisons, it's military control. And prevention, which I think is about positive peace. It's proactive, it's education, it's jobs, it's trauma healing, it's social cohesion. But it's to say that both of those things are needed, right? It's not to say that you'd get rid of negative peace, because often in situations of conflict, it's really security that's needed to get to a level where you can start peace building, right? So there is a relationship between both of these things. So security can stop violence, but really prevention builds peace, and we really need both. So in many ways, sometimes we might feel that security is the most urgent thing that we need, right? And I get that, especially when we live in contexts where, there's high crime rates, high homicide rates. Those things obviously are very important. And we put a lot of resources into that, right? But we've also got to be building the prevention side, because otherwise, as my colleague notes, in 5 years, we find ourselves in exactly the same place we were 5 years ago. And I've been doing this work for over 20 years, and trust me, we've done a big circle and come back around in 20 years, right? All right. So okay, so I wanted to give you a little bit more of this granular idea about peace building, right? Attitudes about peace sort of move with a balance, right? You have risks, and I've just kind of picked some risks, right? Unemployment, weak trust in institutions, gender inequality, exposure to crime. As my colleague laid out before, these can kind of be drivers that create, a sense of, tension, of problems that can connect to other things that can lead to people feeling like they have to take options that may not necessarily be the most peaceful. But we also think about resilience factors. So resilience factors are often the things that, protect people, right? Make people feel a little bit safer, a little bit like they can handle the kind of difficulties in their lives. So when we're thinking about peace, we also need to think about, why do people choose violence? Why do people have an attitude towards violence? And how can we understand that in a way that's not simply sort of, clamping down on it, putting them in prison for the rest of their life and so forth. We also need to understand the longer term drivers of that and why people grow up to develop those sorts of attitudes, right? And risk and resilience is an easy way, well, not an easy way, but is one way that we can think about that. I'll throw something else out here, maybe for the online audience. Where you live, I don't know, what feels stronger, family support, education access, or youth opportunities? I don't know if somebody's looking online and could tell us what they might say. And then I was thinking about a question for the room as well. Why do you think that I've got weak trust in institutions as a risk? Why is it important that that we have institutional trust? What might weak institutional trust create?
Wow. Because if we can't trust our institution, let's just say the government, who can we trust? We would most likely take things into our hands. And that's why neighborhoods, like some people resort to violence because they think it's the quickest way to a solution.
That's an excellent and very succinct answer. Yeah, I'll take another comment over here, but essentially that is one big part of the puzzle. Without trust in institutions, we don't feel that they're capable of fixing our problems. Go ahead, yeah.
For persons that don't turn to measures like violence, they would just stay to themselves and do things to help themselves alone, so they wouldn't really have a community anymore.
That's deep, because one of the things we're noticing in all the elections across the region this year is that voter turnout is down across all groups, but especially amongst young people, 18 to 35. One of our theories is that people are not seeing any changes through democracy, so they're feeling less likely to trust it, which obviously will be a terrible situation for development. Go ahead. Somebody gonna speak there? No. Okay, I'll move on quickly because I've only got limited time. But look, I wanted to talk to you about something called granular peace building, right? Community peace building, to give you a little bit more of insights. This is data, okay? This is actual real data that we went and collected in 2024. It tells us about what are the risk factors for people increasing their use of violence and what are the resilience factors for people reducing their use of violence or a tendency towards violence. And this was collected across 7 countries in the Caribbean: Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Belize, the Bahamas, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, and Dominica. I also have disaggregated data, but this is the aggregated data. So the main thing that comes up in this data that tells us about somebody who uses violence is actual mental health. That might not be surprising for many of us, but we have the data that suggests it, right? Depression, anxiety seems to be one of the biggest risk factors for people that use violence. We also know that exposure to violence in the home, domestic violence, is a huge driver of people who grow up and turn to violence, using violence, right? There's obviously a relationship here. Say you have family vulnerability, which leads to something like domestic violence. That would also have an impact on the children's and the young people's mental health in the household, right? So there's a relationship here between family vulnerability, depression and anxiety, mental health, right? Likewise, we know a resilience factor is if you can say you've had a safe and peaceful childhood, that your needs were met, that you felt loved, that there wasn't violence in the home. People who have that will often have much lower, statistically, use of violence or tendency towards a violent attitude. So again, I would say these three things are connected, right? Safe and peaceful childhood, family kind of cohesion, and mental health. Those things all relate to each other, right? All right, this is a kind of obvious one. This is where we put most of our resources. Exposure to violence in the community, this means and school, and presence of gangs and weapons in your community. So we put a lot of resources into that, and clearly that's important because we have data that says it does lead to people having violent attitudes, but it's not the biggest driver, right? And I think that's interesting because we put a lot of our stuff into securitization, right? But there's something about prevention too that comes out from this chart. Positive feelings to outgroups. And, this is something I feel like Trinis have as a natural kind of, national ability because we kind of a country full of difference, right? We're all kind of different from each other, but we're all parts of these amazing sort of cultures and religions and different ways of doing things. So positive feelings to outgroups where your social tolerance is high to people who are not just like you, but unlike you, you're less likely to have a violent attitude. So that's a good thing to teach, right? A gender equality mindset, so being open to gender equality, recognizing the benefits of a world where we have, gender equality, we have, women leaders and men leaders, and we mix it up. That kind of openness to accepting cultural and gender difference is also intrinsic to having lower violent attitudes. Being older is also a protective factor against violence. Having money, obviously, is a protector against violence, and those are the obvious ones. And then in our data, also religiosity comes up. And I don't think that that's really surprising for the Caribbean. It speaks to kind of some of our realities. So I'm putting all of this out there to show you that there's this kind of granular way that you deal with peace building, right? We're going to have to work on this area, right? We'd have to work on people's mental health. We'd have to work on family supports. We'd have to work on improving economic security. One of the biggest things that comes out here in the economic security is where young people feel they have opportunities and social mobility, they have much lower rates of violence, right? Which makes sense. Give people kind of opportunities, they'll find other things. Don't give them opportunities, and they may find that they take things into their own hands. Yes, we need to be thinking about programs that, do work on social tolerance, that kind of improve gender equality. Those are also important mechanisms. And yes, we need to be, strong in terms of security. We need to have better policing. We need to have reducing gang presence, and we need to stop easy access to weapons. This is taking all the things you were hearing before about the UN and human rights and sort of breaking it down to a much more granular level, right? In addition to that, what you can do is start thinking about what groups in what areas need specific help, right? So it's sometimes what happens in development work is people come along, they got a program, they drop it on a whole population, and they're like, well, it didn't really work how we thought it was going to work, right? Well, that's because we have to be more granular, right? We have to understand which particular group, in which particular area, which particular ages in that group, what particular class background, and what do they need? So for example, taking that data that I just showed you, we could say, whoops, how did I lose that one? Sorry. Thank you.
You have 9 minutes.
Sorry about that, guys. So what I wanted to show you here is how we can start thinking, okay, I need to do child protection and domestic violence programming. I need to target specific people living in poverty, in rural areas, and with lower levels of education. Or I need to do mental health interventions. Again, people living in poverty, but predominantly rural areas, and more women. Gender equality mindset, people with lower levels of education, and more often men, and so forth. So we can actually dig down to the granularity of all of this stuff, right? So when we reduce risks, we can start to sort of measure changes, right? There'll be less normalization of violence, few young people get pulled into the gangs, because often what you need to, to offer people is a kind of a gravitational pull to something else, right? If there's a gravitational pull within the community towards gangs for whatever social, economic, cultural reasons, you need to kind of invent another pull to act against that, right? Because you can't just shut that down, right? You have to have alternatives. And when resilience increases, you get greater trust in institutions, which speaks to what my colleague in the back was saying, more youth opportunities. You get social mobility, which is a big thing that I said really reduces crime and violence. And you get stronger commitments to sort of peaceful solutions. So this is the way that we talk about sustaining peace, okay? We think about peace as something that we have to do both at once. We have to build the resilience and we have to reduce risks. And in many ways, I've kind of broken this down into this kind of way just to simplify it for you, because sometimes people are like, well, what do you actually have to do? What is peace building? Well, it's being multidimensional. It's using lots of different things. Imagine this, right? This is peace, right? You have to have all these things lined up neatly for the building to stand up. If any of them off kilter, the whole building gets weak and peace kind of starts to become difficult to hold on to, right? So peace stands on these strong blocks, and when they hold together, you know, we feel like, you know, we have a resilient society. But where the blocks get weak, the whole structure gets wobbled. And I'll go back to asking you, out of all these things, climate resilience, mental health and social cohesion, equality, opportunities for young people, education, justice, security, which ones do you think are the weakest in TNT right now? Tell me why you think they are the weakest now. There's a hand in front of you there. Oh yeah, there's a couple there.
Hi, I would say not gender equality specifically, but social equality generally is weak because, for example, my grandmother, during the heat wave we had a couple of years back, she didn't have air conditioning. And in many places across Trinidad, there's still not air conditioning, even though it is something we clearly need, especially with the growing climate crisis. So I would say that made me lose a little bit of faith.
Yeah. No, inequality is a great one. Yeah, I think inequality is the major one, right? Across lots of different areas. But would anybody like to speak to any other of these that thinks is right there?
I'd like to speak to justice.
Cool.
We still have a lot of work to do in Trinidad and Tobago, especially in terms of decolonizing our constitution. And we often have a lot of complaints about corruption within the judicial system in terms of magistrates, lawyers taking kickbacks and bribes. So I think we really need to work on our justice and justice system.
Great, thank you. And we also in SDG 16 talk about corruption too, so that's great. Anybody else wanted to speak to this question? Just down in the front or? Okay, sorry, yeah.
Good day. I think we have a lot of problems with opportunities. For a lot of youths, especially, there's a lack of job opportunities in order to get our foots and establish a foundation in starting our careers and stuff. As well as many of opportunities for jobs are being taken away. For example, the disbandment of the URP, the taking away of CPEP. So there's a lot of a lack of opportunities, especially in the job market in Trinidad and Tobago.
Good point, good point. Thank you very much. All right, so I'm down to my last couple of slides, just in a matter of time. So, you know, I've been talking kind of about the granular building blocks of peace building, because I think, like, of course, it's important to understand the mechanisms of the United Nations at a kind of macro level, what happens in New York, what happens elsewhere. It's also important to understand the language that we use, which is the language of human rights. But it's also important to take those things and put them in your lives and in your communities, right? Because they're up here and you need to think about how it works, right? But peace is also built through organizations and institutions, through laws and policies, and through youth advocacy. You know, organizations apply the do no harm, the conflict sensitivity analysis that I speak about, you know, strengthening the systems that bring fairness, human rights, you know, stronger justice, stronger schools, stronger governance. Those things protect human rights, as Reba said, because the responsibility for human rights sits at the state level. Laws and policies give us, the rules to follow, give us the mechanisms to buy into, to build on. So we need rights-based frameworks. Even when I was breaking down the drivers of violence, you saw how gender equality comes up. If we don't try to protect gender equality, it slips, right? So we need mechanisms. Reba talked about accountability, the importance of reducing corruption and exclusion. And then youth advocacy, the future, we're older now, right? The future is kind of you guys, the people who follow after you, the people you're going to educate as well, right? So it's also about what you think is important for the future, right? That you kind of come to agree on thinking together, I really have, in my work, have really come to believe about this, the importance of these drivers around family vulnerability, a lack of opportunities and mental health. In my work, I see that so often at the root causes of people's lives who end up in jail or who commit crimes. But that's not the main way we go after those things. But when you do this work, you start to see those things quite often. So it's not just built in communities, it's sustained by organizations, laws, and advocacy. And then my final slide is peace building cannot be seen separately from development. Really, those things go together. You have to address the root causes of conflict. In a very quick way, I've tried to show you some of those drivers of conflict. Don't forget, you're going to get these slides so you can refer back to them. Reba talked about combating hate speech, why that's so important. I've talked about how social cohesion is really the end game of strong human rights. It's important to have national prevention strategies because really when national governments are building those sorts of things, we get the strongest foundation for peace. We don't generally in the Caribbean have national prevention strategies. We have national strategies, but we don't call them prevention. And then in this last one, this is more about that state level where maybe nations are fighting each other. We usually have a sort of UN peace operations that kind of fills in for some of the institutions that are incapable in a post-war or post-conflict setting to step up, and we help to build those. So the UN, doesn't just do what I was talking about in the community level, also in these bigger kind of national level wars and conflicts, it has a special role to play. There's a little bibliography for stuff that you can check out. There's this video that I feel like is worth watching when you get a chance. It's only 6 minutes long. It shows you a project we did in MUN repo that has all of this stuff in it. And the rest of the stuff should be useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dylan. And if I could ask Elias to help give out the next 2 bags for my respondent in the back who spoke about government trust, and also on this side who spoke about decolonization of our constitution and our institutions. If you all could stand up just so Elias can find you. Thank you very much for your really thoughtful answers. Oh, well, we can actually ask all of them to come down at the end and we'll get a nice group photo. Great. So we are now moving on to our final presentation from Ms. Janelle Mirage, who is our planning and coordination specialist at UN Women's multi-country office in the Caribbean. They are headquartered in Barbados and they have a small team here. And Janelle is the pillar of that small team. So we are very fortunate to have her, and she is going to be speaking to you about women, peace, and security. There you go.
Okay, thanks so much, everyone. How many of you have seen a relay take place before? Show of hands. So you'll know how the first 3 runners take their time and then the last one has to make up the time. That is me, right? So the pressure. So I'm here to just talk about 2 key peace and security agendas within the United Nations system. We're going to talk about a little bit about women, peace and security, and youth, peace and security. So let me just see. All right, good. So Women, Peace and Security is what we call a gender equality accelerator. It's aimed at increasing global and community peace and security through women's leadership and inclusion in what we call prevention. So Dylan would have spoken a lot about these concepts. peacemaking and peace building, and gender responsive justice and protection. Now, why is all of this important? Why do we need women in peace building and peacemaking? Gender roles play a key role in the way in which people experience security and insecurity. These are drivers of conflict, and insecurity are often underpinned by what we call gendered norms. So in our society, we have a lot of what we call social norms, the ways that we grow up in our homes, the things that our families socialize us into believing, the ideologies that we hear through our culture, through religious beliefs, etc. These ideologies often then become institutionalized. They may become written into law. They may become practices in institutions in which we operate, in our employment, in our schools, our universities, etc. And in many cases, we don't recognize how these may be gendered. We don't recognize bias. We may not recognize the different ways that people are experiencing the world. So it's very important for us to understand the ways that security and insecurity are gendered, how crime and violence may be gendered phenomena, how a lack of peace or lack of social cohesion are also being experienced differently by men and women, boys and girls. So I wanted to talk just quickly about the normative framework. When we say the normative framework, these are the international norms and standards, or these treaties and conventions which really underpin the Women, Peace and Security agenda. So there are 11. And I'm going to go really quickly through this because I don't want to hint to you all too much, but we do have a couple quizzes coming up, so pay attention, right? It's now 25 years since the first resolution on women, peace and security, Resolution 1325, which affirmed the importance of the participation of women and the inclusion of gender perspectives in peace negotiations, humanitarian planning, peacekeeping, and post-conflict peace building and governance. So how many years since this resolution? Right, so this year is actually a huge milestone. The anniversary is on October 31st, and there are going to be global and regional celebrations and commemorations around this milestone Security Council resolution. So there have been, as I said, 10 additional resolutions since then. A number of them have broadened the notion of women, peace, and security and the agenda and made it more applicable outside of conflict zones, outside of war zones. So initially, this agenda was designed and developed for countries in conflict or countries at war, recognizing the important role that women have to play in peace building and negotiations and in sustaining peace. Why is this important? The research has actually shown where women are included in peace building, peace agreements are likely to last at least 15 years longer. So peace agreements last longer, they're more sustainable, they're more inclusive, they consider the needs of all types of people in the population, not just with, a singular focus. So coming down now to the most recent resolution, it notes the changing global context of peace and security, the increases in violent extremism and violent extremist groups that we may see in our global context. It also recognizes the increasing number of displaced persons, the impacts of climate change, including also things like the pandemic that we all experienced. And it reiterates its intention to increase attention to women, peace, and security as a cross-cutting subject. So there are 4 pillars. Pay attention to this slide. There are 4 pillars of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325. Participation, which calls for the increased participation of women at all levels of decision-making. Protection, which calls specifically for the protection of women and girls from sexual and gender-based violence, including in emergency and humanitarian situations. This slide has such as refugee camps, but I would also say including in shelter, including after disasters, etc. Prevention is the 3rd one, which calls for improving intervention strategies in the prevention of violence against women. And I want to draw your attention to a specific point around violence against women and girls in our region. On average, based on the data that we do have across at least 5 Caribbean countries, at least 46% of women in the Caribbean have experienced at least one form of violence in their lifetime, right? That's almost 1 in 2. That is significantly higher than the global average. And so the prevention of violence is a critical subject area for us to continue to focus on. And finally, relief and recovery. This calls for the advancement of relief and recovery measures to address international crises using a gendered lens, or as Dylan would have mentioned, a gender and conflict analysis. And these are the very useful tools which allow us to understand the differential impacts on men and women, girls and boys, and different groups. So there are links with other agendas that broaden the application, links with some of the other international treaties and you know, the different peace resolutions, etc. So the slides will be shared with you and you can do some more research on that. Just very quickly, the way that women, peace and security is translated at the national level is through what we call a national action plan. A national action plan articulates the government's commitments and priorities regarding women, peace, and security. So this is one of the policy documents and frameworks that Dylan also mentioned, and one of the ways that UN Women and the UN system support in rolling out of this agenda. It outlines who is responsible for which actions, and it also outlines specific commitments and includes civil society, who are often in the foreground, really dealing with a lot of these issues in communities and fill many of the gaps that states are unable to meet. This slide says 107 countries have adopted a national action plan on WPS as of July 2023. Just to note that it's now 113 countries in the world that have adopted national action plans on women, peace, and security. So just really quickly, the relevance of the WPS agenda globally. We've noted the expanding context and the most recent resolutions which have spoken about climate change, violent extremism. We've also seen organized crime and violence come up a lot in the conversations today, but there are also different types of threats that we need to be aware of. Cyber threats, digital violence against women and girls, given that violence in the online space really reflects violence that is occurring offline. It's a continuum. And why is it relevant to the Caribbean? I think this will be, I just have a couple more slides and then we'll just go quickly into a quiz. So the rate of violent deaths in CARICOM member states is almost 3 times the global average. Picking out another one, violence in the Caribbean is what we call a public health crisis. Treatment for a single gunshot wound can cost up to 11 times the per capita health expenditure. Firearms are used in more than half of all homicides in the whole region, and in some countries, this is 90% of homicides that firearms are used in. And as I mentioned before, for instance, on average, 46% of women have experienced at least one form of violence in her lifetime in the Caribbean. So if we think of almost 1 in 2, and we look around the room and we look at how many women and girls we have sitting in this room, and violence can take different forms, but as you grow into adulthood, this becomes even more prevalent. And so this usually applies to persons who've ever been partnered or who've ever been in a partnership. 46% of them on average have experienced at least one form of violence. So we'll skip over this and let's go quickly to the quiz. So what was the first UN Security Council resolution on WPS? What's the number? What's the number of the resolution? So I want someone who didn't answer before. The guy up in the back there with your hand up. You can shout it out if you need to.
Security Council Resolution 1325.
All right, and for bonus point, what year was it adopted?
2000, and there were 4 things.
2000?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool. So 1325 adopted in 2000. All right, so what are the 4 pillars of the WPS agenda? Someone who hasn't answered before today. On this side, gentleman in the green with your hand up on the end.
Participation, prevention, protection, and relief and recovery.
Good. All right, so I just want 1 or 2 facts of why is women, peace, and security relevant to the Caribbean. We went through a bunch of stats and data points, and we went through some emerging trends and issues. Let me see who hasn't answered yet. Okay, you in front with the black.
Hi, morning. The top 3 countries in the Caribbean are also the top 3 highest homicide rates for females, and as well as 46% of women say that they have experienced violence in the
Okay,
Caribbean.
great. Give a round of applause. All right. And last question, what is a WPS National Action Plan? Someone who hasn't answered before. All right, yes.
Good. It's a policy document created by government to address wrongs against women.
Okay, so a policy document created by government to implement the Women, Peace and Security agenda, and it also outlines government commitments and what are their priorities and how they will do it. But very good.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to just go a couple more slides and then we're wrapping up. I just wanted to mention that there's also a complementary agenda, and this is where you can really get involved. It's called Youth, Peace and Security. And it's a global framework led by the UN that recognizes young people's vital role in building and maintaining peace. It's guided by Security Council Resolution 2250, adopted in 2015, right? And subsequent resolutions. And it shifts the idea that youth are just victims and that they're troublemakers to understanding that they can be positive agents of change and that their participation, protection, prevention, partnership, and reintegration in peace processes is quite critical. It supports inclusive representation of all young people in decision-making and peace building, and really want to hear their voices. That's the whole purpose of this agenda. We need the YPS agenda because young people are disproportionately affected by conflict. They often comprise statistically the majority of those recruited into criminal activity, gang activity, and may find themselves outside of social groups. So they may not have those out groups that Dylan mentioned to identify with or to belong to. And it really emphasizes their agency and their potential as peace builders. Just some data points again, nearly 90% of the world's youth live in developing countries. Young people make up only 2% of parliamentarians worldwide, and the average age of our world leaders is 62. Youth employment in the Caribbean is around 24%, and about 80% of prosecuted crimes are committed by young men aged 19 to 29. So these are really relevant issues to young people. So I'm just going to skip over this. You can look at it when you get the slide. It really speaks to, it really does speak to the process that we took in Trinidad and Tobago to develop a national action plan on women, peace and security. And the other slides as well that I'm going to skip over will tell you how we've been working to advance women, peace and security in the Caribbean. So last slide, it's just the quiz and we're going to close. What is the Youth, Peace and Security agenda and how many years has it been in existence? Someone who hasn't answered before. Show of hands, anybody? All right, this young lady right here in the gray.
Good day. The Youth, Peace and Security agenda is a global framework that recognizes the importance of youth's vital role in basically maintaining and building peace. It was established in 2015, so it would be like 20 years. It's 2025. Yeah.
Right. So it's 2015 and you got the definition right on. So very good. All right, so second one, how is youth, peace, and security relevant to the Caribbean or specifically to your country? What are some of the issues that make this agenda relevant to your country? Young man with the striped shirt.
Youth Peace and Development helps the Caribbean or our country by increasing trust in the government, I believe it was previously stated, and also reducing crime rates by young men in the Caribbean, which will also prevent women from reduce women from being attacked or hurt in any way if these men are properly educated on these crimes.
Okay, so that's good. We spoke about some of the points of resilience. We spoke about some of the risks, and we spoke about why this may be relevant. Any more answers on question 2? One more? Show of hands. Young lady with the glasses.
Another reason that it's relevant is that our leaders tend to be around the age of 62 years old on average, and that youth are disproportionately affected by gang violence. They tend to be the ones recruited into gangs. So involving the youth in peace would be a way to reduce overall violence and conflict.
Okay, very good. All right, last real question. What are some of the ways that young people can get involved in building safer and more secure communities? You could take some answers from what Dylan presented, or you can just talk off the top of your head. What are some of the ways that you personally can get involved in building safer communities? Lots of answers. Young lady over here.
All right. Hello. Yeah. So hi. Not really going into what was discussed here, but what personally resonates with me. I'm a youth leader for youth between the ages of 12 and 15 in my community. And so we gather a small group of people from problematic communities in specifically Arima, but there are different branches all around. And it is led by the Baha'i faith in the Caribbean. And so we gather these youth and we teach them spiritual qualities and basically guide them towards a more positive side of things. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, and the last question, which is not a real question, but did anyone happen to see how many links I put on the prior slide before I clicked into this one? No? Okay, I went too fast, but it was 12. So thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you very much, Janelle. And if I can ask Elias and Matthew to help me give out the last 2 bags, we got a really great definition of youth, peace, and security. So if you can stand up to collect your bag, thank you very much. And just to say thank you for the work that this young lady in the back does with her community, really important work, especially with a vulnerable age group. So thank you so much for your work, and she can get that one in the back. Thank you. So I know TikTok is a thing, but for those who have Instagram, take out your phones, open up your Instagram, and you're going to follow the UN Trinidad and Tobago account, where you can see that when we celebrated the International Day of Peace on Sunday gone, we posted a video that was done with UN Women, collaborating with UNESCO, collaborating with UNDP, because though we are different UN agencies, we all work on different aspects of peace. And so some of exactly what Janelle spoke about, why it's important to have women involved in peace building and why it's important to have young people involved in peace building, that's included in that short message that we had for International Day of Peace. We also post a lot of opportunities when it comes to calls for young peace builders through different UN organizations like UN Alliance of Civilizations or AOC, when UNESCO has regional calls for young people to get involved in youth, peace, and security. And you can see more about the work that agencies like UN Women do in women, peace, and security, etc. So follow us at UN_Trinidad _AND, we couldn't even give it to you shorthand there. So and spelled out _Tobago. Right. Thank you very much for being a wonderful audience this morning. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you so much to Rotary Club of Central Port of Spain for the opportunity. You will all be getting the slides, and we are here to help, and in any way that is needed, and Lara knows how to get in touch.
Folks, let's have another round of applause for our amazing guests and partners from the UN. I really want to thank them for all the knowledge that they've shared with you this morning from all the different parts of the UN system. Really so important. And as I mentioned to you last week, sharing opportunities for you to continue your journey after the Model UN, becoming more involved with the UN, with youth, with peace building, whatever really is of interest to you. And obviously following the UN system will enable you to access those opportunities as well. So thank you very much, Fane and your colleagues. We're now going to go into a very exciting part of the Model UN. I need a floor mic. If I could have one at the table, please. Testing, right. Raisa, can I have a trainer with me, please? Can we get some lights? I don't need slides, just me and my beautiful face. Okay, folks, just give me 1 second. We have a couple of delegates who are not continuing with the Model UNs. I just need to take them off my list quickly, and then I'll be with you. Am I still live streaming? They can see me on the regional delegates. Can anyone help? Colin?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay, lovely. Thanks, Hans. Okay, folks, so the way that this is going to work, you're going to tick off countries, right? I need somebody in front of the table. Who would like to volunteer, a trainer or a GC? Come. Right, so the way that this is going to work is you are randomly going to select the country that you will be representing at MUN this year. And the students have been randomly paired. Although when I say random, it's kind of alphabetical. It's just easier to do it that way. But out of the interest of fairness, I'm actually going to ask that we pull for our regional delegates first today, because they normally get what's left in the bowl. So we're going to give them what's first on the list. So if I can ask you to pick a country for our delegates from Antigua. Are you on the call? Tell me.
Yes, we are.
You are going to be Portugal.
Thank you.
Our delegates from Curacao will be, say it right, Somalia.
Not
So folks, I
sure.
hope you're getting that.
Curacao is on the
You are
call at the moment,
Somalia.
but Somalia.
Okay, next, our delegates from Grenada will represent Mozambique. Our delegates from Montserrat, who I don't think are on the call, are they? So Hans, if you can just take a note and let them know.
I'm doing
Montserrat
so,
will
yes.
represent Benin. And our delegates from St. Vincent and the Grenadines will be representing France. Okay, so just to recap for our delegates online, Antigua, you will be representing Portugal. Curacao, you'll be representing Somalia. Grenada, you'll be representing Mozambique. Montserrat, you'll be representing Benin. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you are France. All right, folks, so let's get into it. So, and I know this is between you and lunch, but we're going to go through it. The first pair, so when I call your names, you're going to both come up, and then you're going to sit together because you're now a country. Good? So get your bags ready, get your water bottles ready. Okay, let's go, let's go. So can I have Alaya Trim from Providence Girls and RJ Burju from Point Fortin East? Coming on down. Let's move with some speed, young people. I know you've been slouching in your chairs and not impressed. I'm gonna, hang on, wait for your partner. Is he in the room? RJ Burju from Point Fortin East, are you here?
Good morning. I am in the online chat.
Right, he's online, lovely. He'll be here next week. Okay, go ahead, Aaliyah. Norway. Wonderful. From Fatima College, Adam Alves. Digger Martin North, Adana Corbin. Adam and Adana, come on down. Are they coming? What's happening? Okay, lovely. This is your new best friend for the next 7 weeks? Hungary. Lots of human rights violations to talk about. Find a seat. Okay, let's go. San Juan South, Adriana Martin, and Northgate College, Aidan Youssef. Adriana and Aidan. So remember today to exchange numbers and WhatsApps, and you guys have got to work together for the next few weeks, right, to get ready. So Adriana and Aidan are going to be the delegation of Italy. Wonderful. Okay, from Barataria South, Amy Pilgrim, and from Matura Secondary, Akil Malcolm. Are they in the hall? Amy and right, lovely. All right, so we have Matura and Barataria together as the delegation of Eritrea. Let's begin with learning how to pronounce the countries. Remember, we have 100 countries this MUNA, so it's nearly all of them. Right. San Juan North, Aquila Chady, and Carapichaima East, Aquila Joseph. And I apologize. I know the room's got quite warm this morning. We're going to ask them to fix the AC for next week. I'm not sure. I know you're not in menopause like me, but still, it's a bit grim. So we'll work on that for next week. Right. So Aquila squared is going to be the delegation of I can't read it. Haiti. That's an interesting one. That's an interesting one. Right. So Shiva Boys Hindu College, Akhilesh Maraj, and St. Anthony's College, Akido Sargent. Akhilesh and Akido. Young executives here. All right. Ecuador. Williamsville Secondary, Akira Lewis, and Bonaire Secondary, Akune Jameson. Apologies if I mispronounce your names, folks. I've been doing this for 20 years and I still can't pronounce all the names. Did I? Akune. Okay, lovely. See, top marks. Akira and Akune are the delegation of Israel. That's going to be fun. Okay, here we go again. Providence Girls, Elena Johnson, and Barrackport West, Alicia Jitnath. Alicia and Elena. Chile. Which is the opposite of what it is in this room. Okay, next pair number 9. St. Francois Girls, Alyssa Ann Charles, and Convent San Fernando, Alyssa Joanne Persidy. So Alyssa and Alyssa. Line, but all right. Smile, it's not going to be that bad. El Salvador. Beautiful. Okay. Diego Martins Central, Amalia Stewart, and Naparima Girls High School, Ambika Passad. Okay, ladies, and you are the delegation of Naparima Girls, straight in there like a bullet. Germany. Splendid. Carapichaima East, Amir Ali, and Asja San Fernando, Amelia Baksh. Asja Girls, sorry. Amir and Amelia. Just cruising on down. All right, here we go. Democratic Republic of the Congo. All right, team number 12. Holy Faith Convent Pinal, Amelia Ragbeer, and Success Laventil, Amelia Waldron. 2 Amelias. See who can get down the steps the fastest. These pesky double steps. So Amelia will be the delegation of Ghana. So the first thing you need to do is Google where your country is, right? Because I'm sure some of you are like, I never heard of that. Okay. Next team, Parvati Girls, Amrita Gangaram, and upper level, Analia Budri. It is very jingly. The delegation of
Ja, dit,
Costa Rica. All right. St. Joseph Convent San Fernando, Anaya Ramhit, and Holy Faith Convent Pinal, Anesia Ali. Anesia Ali. Anaya and Anisa. Oh, ladies, make a decision. Let's go. Oh. Okay, what country starts with an A and a Z? Azerbaijan. That's your country, Azerbaijan. I think that's one of those 52 wars that Trump solved in the last 3 weeks. Okay, here we go. Presentation College, San Fernando, Anthony Frontin, and Bonaire Secondary, Anthony Jack. Hmm. All right, gentlemen, for his prizes and everything, ready to go. You're not lucky, well, you won a prize. Delegation of Bangladesh. St. Mary's College, Antonia Williamson. And Open Bible, Anushka Debedine. What happens, Antonia? Why does everybody go, oh no, when your name gets called? Peru. Anybody knows which very famous bear comes from Peru? Paddington. That's right. Marmalade sandwiches. Okay, here we go. St. Joseph Convent, San Fernando, Anya Brunton. And St. Joseph Convent, Port of Spain, Anya Dolland. The rivalry ends here. This is BFF territory for the two Anyas. I'm sure the nuns will be thrilled to see you collaborating. People's Republic of China. All right, that's a big one. That's a big one. Okay. Team number 18, Open Bible High School, Ashaya Walters, and Cohen Hamilton, Atia Jones. Zimbabwe. San Juan North Secondary, Atoya, Liverpool, and Naprima Girls, Avani Ramlogan. Atoya and Avani. The USA. All right, good luck with that, ladies. Okay, here we go again. Lakshmi Girls, Celeste Ramjatan, Bishop Anstey, Chaya Green. Remember, you're no longer bishops, you are now the delegation of. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Okay, Presentation College Shabunas, Christian Joel. Upper level, Daniel Phillip. Sorry, are you ready? Sorry, just to be clear, Celeste and Chaya, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is which Korea? North. Right? Is that right? I'm checking with the UN. Is that right? DP is North Korea, yes. Right? So if you were super excited, just, managing your expectations a little bit. All right, let's go. Christian and Daniel. Just one. Djibouti. That is not a Beyonce song. It is an actual country. Okay. Presentation San Fernando, Christopher Seabaran. Carapichaima East, Dashawn Serwin. All right, boys, let's see if you can get to the floor fastest. Go. Run like the wind. Oh, there we go. Nice. Let's move. But no, we have no insurance if you fall. So just take your time. The Republic of Korea, which is South Korea. Wonderful. All right. Fatima College, David, Scotland. Parvati Girls, Danica Silal Singh. Poland. That's a good one. That's in the news right now. Okay, here we go. Barataria South, Diane Samaru. Parvati Girls, Divya Silal Singh. Oh, we have Divya and Danica. Okay. Are you Silal Singh sisters? Twins. Oh, my gosh, I didn't even realize. Look, I think we might be the first ever MUN twins. We did? Oh. Okay, all right, just testing. My God. Yes, love. Cuba. Cuba. Lovely. All right, Point Fortin East, Jarion Alexander and Bishop Anstey East. I'm going to say Eminem, but I know that's not right. Enomen, Ansetametafin, Anasetamenafin. How do you pronounce that? Sorry. Ehinomen. It's Egyptian. Nigerian. Okay, I'm really sorry. Are you here though? Oh, okay, it is you. Is it you? Oh, lovely. Well, come on down. And is Jarian here as well?
I'm online.
Online. Beautiful. All right. So your partner is an AI robot. Saudi Arabia. Wonderful. And you'll teach me how to pronounce that so I get it right later on. Okay, Swaha Hindu College, Elena Jagannath. El Dorado West, Elijah Alvarez. Elena's cool and calm. Not phased at all. The Netherlands.
Great, the Netherlands.
All right, lovely. Holy Faith Convent, Elise Laborde, and Lakshmi Girls, Elise Ramnarine. And full disclosure, I went to Nabrima Girls with Elisa's mother. I met her mother when I was 11, and here she is now in my MUN. Can you imagine? No special treatment, though, just, you know, making it clear how old I am. South Africa. Bishop Anstey East, Emily Osuna, and St. Francois Girls, Emma Abdullah. So Emily and Emma. Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. All right, Lakshmi Girls, Emma Buchun and St. Benedict's, Eric Furman. Emma and Eric. Who? Kenya. Very nice. All right, as your boy San Fernando, Ethan Lutchman, Fatima College, Ethan Gunnes. Oh, 2 Ethans. Ethan squared. Folks, I'm going to have to ask you to move a little faster. We're only at number 30. We've got 70 teams to go. So my bad too. I'm, slowing us up. So let's work together to get you some lunch. Singapore. Okay, upper level, Faith Davis, Carapichaima West, Faith Thomas. Faith Davis, Faith Thomas. Let's hear it for the Faiths. Nobody's here? We have no Faiths in the room? Yeah, we have none, or yeah, we have a... So we have no Faith, so we don't have Faith Davis or Faith Thomas. Yeah, having faith in our hearts is not the same as having faith in the hall. Okay, so no Faiths. All right. San Fernando Central. Well, here's another Faith. Faith Teasdale. What happened to all the Faiths? Oh, we have one Faith. Okay, lovely. And Diego Martin North, Farasha James. Farasha's here. Beautiful. Lithuania. What continent is Lithuania in? Yeah. Good. All right, let's go. Barataria South, Felicia Calawan. Poverty Girls, Fiona Senath. So Felicia and Fiona are the delegation of Guatemala. St. George's College, Gabrielle Reyes. Williamsville Secondary, Gabriella Jerry. Gabriel and Gabriella. Sorry. Yes, sorry. Morocco. You have to tell me which dates. Okay. Northgate College, Gabriel Jameson, and St. Anthony's, Giovanni, Renwick. So Giovanni's here in the front, and Gabrielle will be hurtling down the stairs. There we go, hurtling. And you two are the delegation of Belarus. Wonderful. Swaha Hindu College, Govinda Bisram, Bishop Anstey, Juliana Floyd. Dude, just chill, take your time. No rush, people aren't hungry. All right, let's go. Delegation of Croatia. All right, Bishop Anstey High School, Hannah Renwick. Holy Faith Couva, Isabella Budu Gomez. That's a real Trini surname, Budu Gomez. All in all together. Hannah and Isabella will be the delegation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Okay, St. Mary's College, Ishak Parmezar. Poverty Girls, Ishita Verma. I'm sure I've pronounced both of those wrong. The delegation of dun, da, da, da. UAE. All right. Okay. Don't just be following that man wherever he tells you to go, right? It's a partnership, equal. I saw that. Right. St. Francois Girls, Iana Dinsey, Shagwanas North, Jada Ramsahai. So Ayana and Jada are the delegation of, in almost matching outfits, Grenada. Cohen Hamilton, Jada Hercules, and Bonaire Secondary, Jade Bostick. Jada and Jade. Nice, skipping down, lovely, energetic. Nice, I love it, skipping, here we go, the delegation of Cameroon. All right, Bishop Anstey East, Jaden Lewis. Diego Martin North, JL Henry. Jaden and JL. She's just come from the mall with her shopping, making her way down. Stylish and elegant. Jaden and JL are the delegation of Jamaica. All right, Northgate College, Jael Fraser, Williamsville Secondary, Jazara Haynes. Jael and Jazara. The delegation of Canada. All right, now this is a slight disruption in the alphabetical algorithm, but St. Joseph Convent, San Fernando, Jaziel Saunders, and Sharia Taylor, sixth form. Yes, I know. There is a method in my madness. So we're going to have Jaziel, is that right? And Sharia working together. Sharia, is that right? No, how is it pronounced? Tell me, I don't want to get it wrong. Sharai. Well, blow me over. I could not have done that. Sharai. Okay. Sharai. Rwanda. Beautiful. Okay. San Fernando Central, Jamaica Mohammed. Sixth form government, Janae Cummins. Sharai. Sharai. Okay. Jamaica and Janae are the delegate. Is that right? That's probably wrong too. Jamaica. Jamaica, Janae are the delegation of Jamaica. You all should have got Jamaica, really, but anyway. Chad. All right, here we go. Holy Name Convent, Port of Spain, Janae Etienne. Toko Secondary, Janique Miller. So we have Janae and Janique. Lovely. Without my glasses, you could be twins. Let's go. Delegation of Australia. All right, good day, mate. Carapachima East, Jasmine Marcus. San Juan South, Javin Thomas. All right. Coming down in a pincer movement, converging at the front. Jasmine and Javin are the delegation of oh, just pick. Somebody pick, or we'll pick for you. Iraq, with a Q, yes? Good. Trinity Maraval, Javon Joe Field, Asja San Fernando, Jemia. Sorry. Fahey. Javon and Jemiah. Yes, Javon and Jemiah. Javon. Oh, Javon and Jemiah. Yeah, no problem. Okay. Oh, well, she's not being selected. Okay, sorry. Turkey. Right, Holy Faith Couva, Jennifer Solomon. Sawan North, Jeremiah Nicholas. Anna, where's Ananda? Right, okay, sorry, all right. We're trying to figure out what's happening with the faiths. So this is Jennifer and Jeremiah. Where's Jennifer? Jennifer's not here today, but so Jeremiah is the delegation of? Who? Ireland? Armenia, dude. Armenia. But you might need to get those glasses checked. St. Anthony's College, Javel Sandy. Tranquility Secondary, Johanna Cooper. Do you know who's from Armenia, Jeremiah? Which very famous family? The Kardashians are Armenian. So you could probably just check them for some of your research. Right, here we go. Javel and Johanna are Belize. Wonderful. Barrackpore West, Jolene Khan. Lakshmi Girls, Joselle Madhu. Bhutan. Bhutan. Does anybody know what Bhutan is famous for? They have the world's highest, or what level of happiness? Yes, that's correct, right? Bhutan is the UN's going, no, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Yeah, the UN measures their GDP and happiness and how many people die on the Himalayas. Right. Williamsville Secondary, Josh Lachan. Prez San Fernando, Joshua Ramnar. Oh, it's come off the page. Ramnarain Singh, I think. My columns are too narrow. So we have Josh and Joshua, who will be the delegation of. Jesus can't help you now, love. It's all in the fates. It's all the magic of the Orange Bowl. Venezuela. Yes, that's going to be interesting. All right, here we go. San Fernando Central, Josiah Charan and Cohen Hamilton, Jovia Graham. Jovia, probably. Is it Jovia? Yes. I knew as soon as I was saying it, it was wrong. So Josiah and Jovia are the delegation of Guyana. So do not sit next to Venezuela. All right, here we go. Chaguanas North, Justin Rajkumar. Presentation College Chaguanas, Kaden Khan. Just one? Are you Justin or Caden? Is Caden here? Oh, there he is. Okay. I haven't got my glasses on, so I can either write or see, but I can't do both. So Justin and Caden are the delegation of Mexico. All right. Before I forget, can we just pick a country out of the bowl for Faith Davis and Faith Thomas? Libya. Oh, dear. All right. They're glad they weren't here for that one. Okay, let's go. Digger Martin North, Kaylin Hippolyte, and Barrackpore West, Caitlin Mohammed. All right, let's go, girls. This is where it's important to be in sensible shoes. All right, so Kaylin and Caitlin will be delegation of Bolivia. Holy Faith Couva, Caleb Toby, Woodbrook Secondary, Kamaya Holder. Let's have Caleb and Kamaya. Is it Kamia or Kamaya? Kamia, see, I got them both wrong. Kamia, okay. President of our lovely Interact Club. All right, let's go. Delegation of What? Cambodia? Why are you sprinkling up your face? You never heard of Cambodia? It's a huge country. Cambodian War. All right. Cambodia, which is in what continent, folks? What continent is Cambodia in? Asia. Oh, Lord. Do you not do geography in school anymore? When I was at NAPS, we did a lot of geography. All right, here we go. Bishop Anstey East, Camilla Norey. Shiva Boys, Karishma Harry. Camellia and Karishma are the delegation of walking down the stairs in heels. It's good news, folks. What is it? Trinidad and Tobago. So we expect to see some fabulous costumes, ladies. All right, as your girls, Tuna Puna, Carissa Lopez. Convent Port of Spain, Cassidy Goltro. The delegation of Thailand. Swaha Hindu College, Kavasha Suklal. As your girls, Kayla Alakala. That's not right. Alakala? Alakala. That's beautiful. That's a lovely, like a nail polish color. Alakala. Kavasha and Kayla are the, oh, here she comes, are the delegation of and they're also matching outfits. Look at that. Afghanistan. All right. So you know you won't be allowed to speak for the whole MUN. All right. Success Laventille, Kayla Flanders. Sixth Form Government, Kane Timothy. So Kayla and Kane. All right. We're groovy. Yeah, man, dude. Yeah, we're good. Let's go. Here we go. Yeah. Russia. That's going to be interesting. All right, here we go. St. Anthony's College, Kelani Keshwa, Matura Secondary, Keelon Thomas. My distant cousin. Kelani and Keelon are the delegation. Oh, no, she's going to the toilet. It's him. We were all watching her. We thought she was your partner. Sorry. Kelani and Keelon are Japan. Lovely. Carapachima East, Kelsey Marie Peters, Fatima Kennedy Valley. All right. Kelsey Marie and Kennedy are the delegation of also matching outfits. So from next week, I want to see all the pairs in matching colors. I'm just kidding. Kelsey, you can't fist bump everybody on the way. We need to get cracking. The United Kingdom. Carapachima West, Kendra Felix, Bishop Anstey East, Curlia Sunarain Singh. Do we have both Kendra and Curlia? Lovely. Next year, I'm going to do it like one of those bingo things. We just pull a ball and the ball has got your country on it. All right, here we go. Kendra and Curlia are not looking very enthusiastic about being the delegation of Argentina. By the way, football shirts are not approved attire for MUN, just in case you thought you were going to wear your messy shirts. Right, so Francois girls, Kezia Smith, presentation Shaguanas, Kavir, Manbode. Manbode. Should it be Manbod? Manbode. Okay. Kezia and Kavir. See, Keziah, Lord, Keziah. Not gonna. When we call your certificates on MUN, I'll just say Miss Smith. All right, here we go. Keziah and Kavir are the delegation of. Oh. Also in matching colors. Ethiopia. Convent San Fernando, Kiara St. Clair. Success Laventil, Kiara Shepherd. Kira Shepherd. I need to get my eyes tested. Kiara and Kiera. I think that's right. We're all watching you. Okay, ladies, you are the delegation of India. Diego Martin Central, Kimora Mills, St. George's College, Kinara John. Kimora and Kinara. For our region, I'm guessing our regional delegates have gone, have they? They're probably on lunch, but you can tell them they can go if they want, because it's 12:30. Brazil. Holy Name Port of Spain, Kiona Phillip. Sixth Form Government, Kiara Williams. Kiara Williams. Delegation of just one country. New Zealand. Land of the Hobbits. All right, where am I? Point Fortin East, Koana Reed, St. Mary's College, Kyle Ransom.
Hi, I'm online.
Sorry?
I'm
Hello?
online.
Oh, okay, I don't know what's happening. Koana and Kyle, you are the delegation of. Oh, there's another one going to the. People, do not go to the toilet while I'm trying to call countries. I get excited that it's you. Sorry, you're Kyle, right? So is Kawana Reed not here? She's online. That's all I needed to hear. Sorry, I'm sorry, Kawana. That's what we were doing. Right. So, Kyle, you are the delegation of Burundi. Everybody's clapping like never heard of it. Never heard of it. I'm sure you'll get to know Burundi very well by the end of MUN. All right, Trinity College Maraval, Kyla James, Blanchisseuse Secondary, Latoya Lekey. Lekey. Latoya Lekey. Okay, French. All right, ladies. So from Maraval to Blanchisseuse, here we go. The delegation of Ukraine. So those of you that are getting countries that are in the news, we're going to expect some strong representation. I mean, all countries should be strong, but, you know, there are some more than others that are in the current affairs. Matura Secondary, Latia Lamkin, St. Francois Girls, Makina Ferreira. Oh, is it McKenna? McKenna. Makina Matado Maturu Matado. All right, we're nearly there, folks, nearly there. Latia and McKenna are the delegation of Fiji. Tranquility Secondary, Malachi Charles, Diego Martin Central, Malik Wallace. Do you realize we're at the M's, right? Malachi and Malik. Are going to be the delegation of Sudan. San Juan North, Miriam Alexis, and Asda Girls Tunapuna, Maya Bunbury. Mariam and Maya. You both here? Yeah. You are going to be the delegation of You don't have to read it out loud. Bulgaria. Bulgaria. What continent is Bulgaria in? All right, we'll know all about it by next week, right? That's what MUN does. It expands your minds. All right, here we go again. St. George's College, Malay's lead. Malay's? All right. San Juan South, Mackenzie Roberts. Iran with an N. Asda Girls Charlieville, Megan Rambarose, Carapichaima West, Maria Mitchell. So if your name begins with any letter, we're now in the M's going into the N's. I suggest you start standing and moving towards the front of the hall, right? If your first name starts with a letter after the letter M. We have with us Megan and Mariah, okay, good. Whose country is Sweden. All right, San Juan South, Mikkel Brito, Holy Name Port of Spain, Maya Cox. All right, well, your food will be cold, just don't blame me. Okay, and the UN wants to take photos before lunch as well, so. Yes, we say yes because they're giving money to MUN and we love them. Yes, thank you. I don't ever want to hear that when a sponsor asks us to do something. Panama. Wonderful. Remember, we're keeping them from their families on Saturdays as well. So we're all in this love, harmony, and peace. Here we go. Bishop Anstey High School. Naifa Phillips, working with St. Francois Girls, Nazira Lukman. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, Zara. Now, Naifa and Nazira are going to be the delegation of. And we also have this UN frame here. We want to get some pictures with that as well before they leave. So let's go, ladies. Ireland. Oh, to be sure. My grandmother was Irish. Beautiful place. Here we go. Bishop Anstey, Natalia Sandiford. Presentation College San Fernando, Nishad Rupnarain. Natalia and Nishad will be the delegation of Malaysia. Malaysia, nice one. Bishop Anstey East, sixth form, Onika Stout. Bonaire Secondary, Oriella Hernandez. Onika and Oriella are the delegation of Nepal. Please do not pronounce it nipple. It is Nepal. Matura Secondary, Paula Johnson. Lakshmi Girls, Peyton Ramkisoon. Oh, that's not her. Okay. Paula, are you Paula or Peyton? You're Peyton. Are you Paula? Oh, okay. You look like you're just going out for a stroll. So Paula and Peyton will be the delegation of Belgium. Lovely waffles. Presentation College Shagwanas, Pradeep Sukhdeo. Matura Secondary, Pretty Jafar. Pretty. So Pradeep and Pretty together are the delegation of Finland. Lovely. All right. Cohen Hamilton, Rachel Hackshaw, Trinity Maraval, Rashad Rajkumar. Rachel and Rashad, the Ray Rays, are going to be the delegation. I love it. Coming down with speed. The delegation of Yemen. Holy Name Convent, Port of Spain, Rene Ramcharan, Barak Paul West, Roland Ramsaran. Rene and Roland. Oh, lovely. Look at that speed. That's what we want, folks. Delegation of Barbados. Williamsville Secondary, Ramila Madho, and St. Joseph Convent, St. Joseph, Ryle Auguste. Ryle? Auguste. Ramila and Ryle will be the delegation of course it's Riley, that's what I meant. Riley. Goodness me. Serbia. Lovely, Serbia. All right, Shiva Boys, Sachin Haridas. Asja Girls, Safia Shah. Sachin and Safia are the delegation of dun, dun, dun. Myanmar. Lovely. This is going to be some wonderful research for you all. El Dorado West, Salisha Batiste. Asja Girl San Fernando, Salma Mohammed. Salisha and Salma. It is a be kind of day, I agree. So Alicia and Salma will be the delegation of Nigeria. Naparima girls, Samantha Acosta. Upper level, Sangeeta Maiku. Samantha and Sangeeta. Are going to be the delegation of Colombia. Asja girls, San Fernando, Sanjana Mohammed, Bishop Anstey East, Savion Harper. Sanjana and Savion. Look at that, same t-shirt, same stroll. Look at that. Twins coming down. I mean, really, look, matching pair, lovely. So Sanjana and Savion, you're going to be the delegation of? Uganda. Uganda. Point Fortin East, Serena Samuel, Blancheshire Secondary, Severenity Wilson. Both of you here, no? Serena, are you online?
Samuel's online.
Lovely. So is it Severenity or Serenity? Severenity, it has got to be in it. Lovely. So you are going to be the delegation of Angola. St. Joseph Convent Board of Spain, Shakira Whiskey Pierre, Shiva Boys, Shakan Hills. So Shakira and Shakan, if you're here, call them Shaka Khan for short. Kuwait with a Q. All right, so here we go. Nearly at the end, folks. We're at the S's. Barrack Paul West, Sheldon Ramdan, Matura Secondary, Chanel Manley. Sheldon's not here. Is Chanel here? Okay. Sheldon is absent and Chanel is here. So Chanel is going to select and will be the delegation of Burkina Faso. What continent is Burkina Faso in? Good job. All right, Asja girls, Tunapuna, Cheyenne McDonald, and St. George's College, Sean Braffett. Cheyenne and Sean. Cheyenne. I love the way they shout it at me from the back of the hall. Cheyenne and Sean. It's a bit like pulling countries for FIFA. For the world. Who's going to have the World Cup? Here we go. Cyan. Cheyenne and Cyan. Yeah, I'm going to get that wrong again. Indonesia, beautiful. St. Joseph Convent, San Fernando, Suri Rampasad. Naprima girls, Surya Balgobin. Suri and Surya. Who will be the delegation of Syria? Suri and Surya are the delegation of Pakistan. Lakshmi girls, Swasti Maharaj, and Parvati girls, Tarita Mumasar. So Swasti and Tarita will be the delegation of Greece. All right, now we have, just because of the numbers, we have a team of 3. We have one team of 3. Very exciting. I know. I'm hearing the joy in your responses. So the 3 will be, and this might change when we do an audit of today, depending on no-shows. But for now, this is a 3. St. Mary's College, Terrell Thomas. Asja Boys, San Fernando, Zayan Sheikh. And St. Joseph Convent, Port of Spain, Terran Marie. So Terrell, Zayan, and Terran Marie will be a team of 3 for eternity. All right, folks. So the 3 of you will work together. It may change, but for now, let's see. Spain, nice. St. Benedict's College, Timothy Ragbeer, Diego Martin Central, Tristan Joseph. Timothy and Tristan. We're in the T's now, folks. Have all the Rotarians gone home? Oh, just me here on my own. All right, lovely. Timothy and Tristan are the delegation of backpacks. Liberia. Oh, good. Liberia or Libya? Has he got an ER in it? Liberia. Lovely. First female president in Africa was Liberia. Lovely. And it's not librarian, it's Liberia. All right, here we go. Toko Secondary, Tyra Williams. Swaha Hindu, Vashish Maraj. Are you both here? Beautiful. Tyra and Vashish are the delegation of So when I said if your name starts after T, move to the front, didn't really resonate. Delegation of Jordan. Jordan. All right. Like Michael. Nice. As your boy San Fernando, Videsh Mohammed. Karapachaima East, Vidya Ramnath. Videsh and Vidya will be the delegation of Nicaragua. Nicaragua. Lovely. All right, we should have 3 more countries in the bowl. Are there 3 more? You got 4. Okay, no, it's because we had one pair no-show. That's okay. So one team might get the chance to change their country, but let's see how we go. Let's see. Barrack Paul West, Xavier Frank. Northgate College, Yusuf Kelly. So Xavier and Yusuf will be who? Malawi. Malawi, lovely. I thought I heard you say Miami. I'm sure I didn't put Miami in there. St. George's College, Yuri Maxwell. Trinity College, Zachariah Goodridge. Yuri and Zachariah. Y and Z. Next year, we'll do the reverse. We'll start with the Ys. Syria. Syrian Republic. All right, folks. Our final selection today is as your boy San Fernando, Zachary Weaver, and St. Joseph Convent St. Joseph, Zaya McDonald. You should already be on your feet at the front because you know your Z. So you've got 2 choices. Let's see. The last country. It can't be New York. Egypt. All right, folks. Can I have the bowl back, please? So, is there any, all right, first of all, let me ask, did any student not get called? I haven't, I've got my, sorry, I need to put my glasses on. Can you stand if we didn't call your name? No? All right, so we've got everybody. Beautiful. Okay, lovely. Is there anybody here who wants to change their country? And hang on. In order to change your, that's the last one. In order to change your country, you have to tell me what my middle name is. No. Not Mary, no. Yes. What? Crack? Mariah? Quentrell Thomas is my surname. I have a middle name between Lara and Quentrell Thomas. Annalise? Nobody's Googling? No? Okay. It's not on there? All right. Let me give you an easy one. What's the name of my cat? You're supposed to be on Facebook. Did I not tell you last week to go on Facebook? What is something that you ring in a church? Yay, Bella. Who got Bella? All right. Gentleman with the gray backpack, you want to change your country? Right, there's just one other. This is it, right? Swap. Okay, let's go. Which country were you or are you? Malaysia. All right, so not Malaysia. All right. Yes, in the back, waving your hand. What country are you? No, no. All right, we have the gentleman on his feet. What country? There's a mic here if we can't hear you. You can't swap. Listen, do not swap with other teams because I've got lists here. So don't just randomly be giving away countries. I need to know who's who. Use the microphone, honey. It's right behind you. Oh. Well, that's a good excuse to then. Let me see. All right. So, folks, what do you think? This is Eritrea. All right. All right. All right. Let's be. So we're going to give him a new country and then we're done. This is your new country. See if you can pronounce that. Denmark. All right, ladies and gentlemen, well done, everybody. Give yourselves a round of applause. All right. So, couple things before we go for lunch. I know it's already 1 o'clock, but we had double the number of countries that we normally have. Your food is here and it's waiting and it's probably cold, but doesn't matter because it's free, right? Our sponsors have paid for it and we love them. So we accept cold food because millions of children have nothing to eat today. So we are grateful and we accept the food with love, yes? Whatever state it's in. All right. But the UN wants to take some photos. Clifford is going to come down and take some photos.
Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cambodia, Cameroon, Canada, Chad, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Côte d'Ivoire, Croatia, Cuba, Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Denmark, Djibouti, Ecuador, Egypt, El Salvador, Ethiopia, Fiji, Finland, France,
Present and voting.
Germany, Ghana, Greece, Grenada, Guatemala, Guyana, Haiti, Hungary, India, Indonesia, Iran, Iraq, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Jamaica, Japan, Jordan, Kenya, Kuwait, Liberia, Libya,
Are the two faiths?
Lithuania, Malawi, Malaysia, Mexico, Morocco, Mozambique, Myanmar, Nepal, Netherlands, New Zealand, Nicaragua, Nigeria, Norway,
Present and voting.
Pakistan, Panama, People's Republic of China, Peru, Poland, Portugal,
Present.
Republic of Korea, Russian Federation, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, Serbia, Singapore, Somalia, South Africa, Spain, Sudan, Sweden, Syrian Republic, Thailand, Trinidad and Tobago, Turkey, Uganda, Ukraine, United Arab Emirates, United Kingdom, United States of America, Venezuela, Yemen, Zimbabwe. We will ask now if any countries have not heard your name. Please raise your placard now. Thank you. Delegates, we are now moving on into a period of 5 minutes to create a position paper on the following topic. Decorum delegates. The topic goes, transgender bathrooms should be available in all government buildings and tertiary institutions in each country.